seen too much before, in particular the Subtlety Rogue.
I feel like the Subtlety Rogue is a lot like volleyball, where he is setting up the serve and then you just see the Destruction Warlock slam dunk every single time. Those are probably wrong terminologies, but you know what? It's good enough. I think that everyone understands it, but that is the main playstyle of this composition. The Rogue sets up, and then the Destruction Warlock and the Paladin get the follow-up.
I'm not an expert, but I don't think there's slam dunks in volleyball.
But it sounded good enough.
That might be a different game.
Which one's the Panzer tank?
All right, cheap shot on Corlick. What is Peekaboo going to be able to get done? Looks like Nick, he's going to be opening up on a WizK. Blind early on at a Corlick. The move looking for some counter aggression. Absurge already trinketed out of a blind, and now the next setup coming in from No Name could be devastating for the move, but it's Aquafina who's on the back foot right now. Peekaboo's all over him. WizK getting out some damage in Void Form, empowering his abilities, but there's just no crowd control on Corlick, and he's easily able to heal through this attack.
All right, Corlick using that Blessing of Sacrifice to redirect the damage of Peekaboo's Vendetta and survive that attack. We see No Name positioning back defensively, retreating away from the move. The mover looking to pursue them behind the pillar, but now actually getting counter-engaged on a triple stun lockdown, big Chaos Bolts, big swap onto Absturge. Bit unexpected to see the Shaman as the target, as they are typically so durable in Ghost Wolf, and the roster with the Destruction Warlock, Subtlety Rogue, and Paladin have no way to effectively remove it. So I'm not really the biggest fan of the swaps for the Shaman. Potentially just keep Absturge on his toes by poking him every once in a while, but if they commit aggressive cooldowns like the Infernal as they did, I feel like it's basically a throwaway of that cooldown.
Yeah, Corlick kind of struggling on mana at this point. He's 50% mana. He's caught into a cap zone. Nick doing everything he can. Kidney shot on Absurge. Cheap shot onto WizK, trying to deny the fear, but WizK trinkets, finds it anyways. Now Corlick snuck into a full hacks. Peekaboo all over Aqua. What are they going to be able to get done? Aqua with the beautiful counter coil onto WizK, onto Peekaboo, slowing down their damage. Nice fear as well. Absurge unable to dispel it, unfortunately. He's across the map. And Aqua just in midfield, spamming out Chaos Bolts, forcing the move to play a little bit of defense. WizK is kind of hiding for his life right now.
All right, Nick has been engaging a lot of crowd control on Absturge. As Subtlety, you often use your kidney shot stun on the healer, as you have Shadow Dance to cheap shot your kill target. It just adds an extra 6-second stun to the healer. The main problem I see for No Name right now is that there's been no consistent follow-up. Nick will engage and set up, and then his team kind of just lets them down. They're not in a position to follow up with crowd control or damage. Here, finally, 3 members of the move in crowd control. They've isolated WizK. They've got follow-up onto 2 members. That's exactly what No Name need to do, but WizK makes a trade on cooldowns with that Greater Fade and now looks to counter-engage with triple crowd control of his own. Beautiful reverse setup by the move. This is likely to be a Divine Shield. Big push from the move. Perfect counter-engagement.
That was really nicely done by Aqua. WizK was looking for an instant Mass Dispel on Corlick. That would have been a checkmate situation, but Aqua with a beautiful counter Mortal Coil slowed that down and freed him up, and as a result, Corlick did manage to stay alive and top himself up, but at the cost of his Divine Shield. That was a good solo push by Peekaboo. Nice double fear from WizK. That's the kind of setups we like to see from the move. WizK now under fire, taking quite a bit of damage from Nick. Chaos Bolt being cast out by Aqua. Big damage. WizK not messing around, instantly goes into Dispersion to avoid that damage.
All right, Absturge trinketing out a blind. Corlick the target for the move. They're consistently going after the healer. Big Gladiator Maledict attack. It's going to absorb a lot of heals from Corlick. If he gets interrupted even on one Holy Light, it could be the end of game 1. He's going to use Demonic Gateway to escape from the move. We see Nick setting up crowd control. Peekaboo's in a fear. It's 3-on-1. Where's the follow-up? Repentance being casted, but not secured. Peekaboo was able to disrupt it, and now that's putting Corlick behind. Aqua is trying to support with fears on Peekaboo, but Corlick is still under fire. His Avenging Wrath is now faded. He's blinded at low health. At this point, I feel like Corlick is about to get KO'd. If Peekaboo gets the sap out of this, waits for his diminishing returns, WizK and Absturge push up. There's no way that Corlick likely survives this unless he gets saved by his teammates. Aqua and Nick need to get ready. They go into Peekaboo, but they DR stun him. So now Peekaboo is going to feel comfortable to just immediately go for the kill. WizK moves in, gets the double fear. Someone needs to help Corlick. Aqua is going to, but he misses his Infernal. It hits the healer and no damage dealers. There's no save for Corlick, and the move take game 1.
No Name this game is just a little bit more coordinated crowd control, basically a bigger group effort to try to get the crowd control, try to take down WizK, or potentially Absurge or Peekaboo in a nice swap.
Pretty surprised that Nick and Peekaboo didn't run into each other. They were so close in stealth. Peekaboo is going to open from stealth. That allows Nick to then open immediately afterward, but not going to be peeling Peekaboo away, instead immediately jumping onto the Shadow Priest. In the meantime, Absurge has managed to hex the Paladin. That is putting the Warlock very far behind. Beautiful hexes from Absurge in this entire series so far, definitely adding a lot of extra crowd control and momentum to the team. Corlick is now finally out of crowd control, now into a blind. That's the Gladiator's Medallion, so they're immediately going to switch to him, maybe? Nope, they're going to crowd control him and then go after the Destruction Warlock. Aqua's interrupted, he can't activate the Unending Resolve. Smoke Bomb is line of sighting Corlick. Corlick sneaks in on his Paladin Steed, connects the Blessing of Sacrifice, redirecting damage during that Smoke Bomb and now allowing Aqua to survive. Aqua dropped the Infernals, he's ramping up with Rain of Fire. So this is where I would like to see No Name make a big push, crowd control to 3 members. They already got Absterge's Gladiator's Medallion. Kidney Shot is now out of the way, although they need to be ready for this crowd control chain. There's nothing to follow up on the silence. Absterge is stunned, so they need a Fear or a Repentance. They get the Repentance. They've got Peekaboo and WizK stunned. That's going to net them Fade from WizK, immuning damage. He is able to actually get the Mass Dispel as a result, so Absterge is now going aggressive. He gets a Hex using the Spirit Walker's Grace to immune himself from Aqua's Spell Lock. That was a very aggressive play on Absterge's part. He's definitely not afraid to go aggro.
Yeah, they never are. I mean, the Move is a team that's been playing aggressive for quite some time. Absterge now into Kitty Shot. WizK into a Cheap Shot. Do they have the damage? Can they force out the Dispersion? No Greater Fate available, but a nice triple Fear coming in from WizK, denying that aggression. Aqua responds with the double Mortal Coil on the Peekaboo, onto WizK, but there's just no crowd control on Absterge. And I think he's going to be able to easily heal up WizK. And in a moment, it's going to be the Move's turn to strike back.
All right, the Move looking to close here. They're pretty far ahead on cooldowns. I'm wondering if No Name should change targets. If the Rogue is maybe a better target than the Shadow Priest. I feel like Paladins can pretty easily deal through Shadow Priest constant pressure, but when they're getting trained down by a Rogue like Peekaboo, he seems to be having a tough time. Every single swap, Corlick dips below 50% health. Struggling to survive. Peekaboo's in a Fear at the moment, but immediately afterwards is just going to continue tunneling Corlick into the ground. And at this point, I mean, this could just be the Divine Shield as the Move begin to collapse on top of him. We see Nick engaging crowd control to try and save and also make a counter push. They get Dispersion from WizK, but Corlick is still the one that's much lower on health. Mortal Coil is stalling. Corlick's trying to hold out on the Divine Shield. If he can get a Divine Favor heal with his wings, he'll go to full health instantly. He goes for it. He gets dispelled and kicked instantly. Beautiful play by WizK and Peekaboo, but they don't get the kill. And WizK is actually still very low on health. Aqua gets stunned right before landing a Chaos Bolt. Nick continues the crowd control. If we see a Repentance here, that's on diminishing return, so unfortunate.
Full blind.
They get a blind, but Absterge has Trinket. Although now it's not going to be lined up to use Trinket and Spirit Link. I'm very surprised that Corlick did not end up going down during that attack. The coordination of WizK and Peekaboo, I mean, this is why they can still make it to broadcast with this composition that is otherwise, we would say, subpar in the current meta, is because they are such top-tier players.
Yeah, I mean, that was beautiful play. Corlick still being trained down. Peekaboo all over him. There's been good peels coming in from Aqua. He's been able to get out a lot of consistent fears on Peekaboo, but Absterge has been there to back him up, and slowly but surely, Corlick's getting whittled down. He's in a full silence. He managed to get the Hammer of Justice on Peekaboo, or that could have been his life. Nice Shadow Step kick coming in from Peekaboo, interrupting Corlick. Peekaboo back to getting on top of Corlick. Is he going to be able to get the Kidney Shot? Unfortunately, no. Divine Favor comes in from Corlick. That's going to be enough for him to survive for now. Trinkets out of the Smoke Bomb. Kidney Shot still trying to make his way across the map, but Absterge, WizK, Peekaboo, they're all over him. Peekaboo hunting him down. What is Corlick going to do in this situation? If Absterge can get there, if Peekaboo can get there, if they have an interrupt, Corlick will easily just fall. He does manage to find some flash of lights, but he needs help. Nick and Aqua, they have to help him. He's in a full Kidney Shot, but I think that's just going to be it. It's too much pressure coming in from the Move. Corlick left alone for way too long. Is the Move going to be able to get done? Can No Name sort of get back in this series? They need to at this point. Nick on the Windwalker Monk is going to bring a lot more consistent damage, but a little bit less setup than that Subtlety Rogue. And I think a lot of his damage is going to be focused on WizK in this matchup, just trying to deny WizK, trying to take advantage of the fact that, you know, Shadow Priests don't necessarily have the most mobility, and if Aqua can get some good Chaos Bolts, partnered with a big Fist of Fury, Whirling Dragon Punch, I could see WizK falling.
I'm always excited to see the new blood in the tournaments here with No Name taking their shot at the Move. The Paladin Rogue, Destro Lock not working out for them, so they're going to completely change their composition to a Windwalker, Shaman, Destruction Warlock, a lot more durable overall, so they're going to have a lot more room for error. Potentially that will allow them to shake off the nerves and push forward. So far, their initial assault looks great. They executed crowd control into 3 players. They bursted WizK. They got a Greater Fade and a Vampiric Embrace out of the way from the Shadow Priest. Grounding Totem there from Absterge, denying some follow-up Chaos Bolts. Peekaboo, though, is playing it patient. He's holding on to Vendetta in this matchup, not immediately going for it off of cooldown. looking for a strong, we could maybe see a swap to Corlick in this situation where he has no Gladiator's Medallion, but they definitely need to make sure that they remove that Ghost Wolf if that's what they decide to do. Corlick is actually lobbing out Lava Bursts and playing aggressive on WizK, adding quite a bit of extra damage to the team and pressuring him.
Ooh,
now WizK lets the counter engage, but Nick pre-grapple weapon the stun on himself. So right before Nick got stunned, he activated grapple weapon, which removes the rogue's weapons, and Peekaboo couldn't attack Nick in the stun as a result. So beautiful counter play there on Nick's part. Now he's retreated away, pulling back. They want to bait the Shadow Priest off the pillar, so if No Name can retreat away and WizK runs out into midfield, it's way more beneficial for Aqua to be in midfield than it is for WizK, and right now the positioning benefits No Name.
Yeah, good Chaos Bolt coming in, but WizK did manage to use that Greater Fate to avoid it. Silence on Corlick. Nick still seems to be the target of choice. He's not running the Fortifying Brew, opting for that grapple weapon instead, and he's a little bit vulnerable on that Windwalker Monk, and maybe the move wants to test him a little bit. I feel like the longer this game goes, the move can sort of just hide, try to avoid damage for a long period of time, and then eventually take down Aqua when his self-healing is limited and the Restoration Shaman healing is limited. But so far it's been WizK in the defensive, just getting out of dispersion. No Name's been doing a good job keeping up their aggression, but I can't help but feel in the late game the move have a big advantage. So No Name, they have to make an offensive push. Yep,
the sustained damage from the Assassination Rogue and the Shadow Priest is significant, but if they can't survive to the late game, then they will be bursted down heavily. They can't afford to reposition like they did. WizK has limited defense. If he runs into midfield, he's almost certainly going to be throwing the game. So WizK is likely to stay at the pillar for some time. But now that they see WizK staying at the pillar, No Name begin to attack Peekaboo instead. I like the target swap there, not overextending, and then you can force the team of the move to collapse on top of each other defensively. Perfect positioning for triple leg sweep, perfect positioning for just a lot of damage to all three members of the team. So if No Name keep up this position, where if they're out in the open, the move out, nice. They can definitely get a kill. But we see a swap attempt onto Corlick. He is not in Ghost Wolf. He switches Earth Shield to himself and activates the Astral Shift. That is a good trade for the Vendetta of Peekaboo. Good crowd control on Absturge. Now the move being punished for their push. Big hit. That's a Void Shift from WizK, so he actually used a 5-minute cooldown, redirected his health to Peekaboo as he was low, but still being bursted. And this is the result of pushing on top of Corlick and leaving the Destruction Warlock open for so long. If they don't find a kill on him, they are going to fall heavily behind on cooldowns, or potentially lose.
Yeah, WizK still in a lot of trouble. Absturge has Trinket and Spirit Link, but I can't help but feel like the move is getting a little bit over-aggressive. That swap onto Corlick is really dangerous. Like you said, there was a paralysis coming in from Nick onto Absturge. Aquafina, he followed it up with a Fear, used the Dark Soul, and it forced out a lot of defensive cooldowns from the move. It was an excellent setup, but I feel like the move, they should play it a little bit more patient, just play to their advantage in the late game, but the move is a team that quite often is willing to take those risks and close out the game a little bit earlier, but it can easily backfire.
Ooh, double leg sweep from Nick, punishing the positioning here of the move. WizK has to use his Gladiator's Medallion to break out of the stun and use Fade to immune incoming damage. So that was a big trade from WizK to survive that positional throw. And it's not even a throw. I mean, this is the problem. If WizK runs in the middle of the map, he avoids being AoE'd down by Nick, but then he gets killed single target damage from the Destruction Warlock. But if WizK stays at the pillar and tries to hide with Absturge, then Nick gets to stun the entire team and hit all three members. So there's really no positioning right now that the move have an advantage. They just have to deal with it, which is the easier damage to heal through, the single target of the Warlock or the area of effect of the Windwalker. And I think at this point in time, it's probably the Windwalker is easier to deal with. And then potentially when Leg Sweep rotates off cooldown, they should push out, trade a cooldown for the Destruction's damage. And if they can keep rotating and stay alive into Dampening, we've seen what happens when an Assassination Warlock attacks a Destruction Warlock in Dampening. It's not good for the Warlock, but the move, they keep going after Corlick. They burst him down to half health and then blind him, holding him at about 50% health. So if Peekaboo can sap this, although it doesn't look like he's getting there in time, Corlick is going to Flame Shock him, keep him in combat. Very good denial there of Aqua, using Fear to crowd control Peekaboo. Peekaboo's still just going for the kill. They purge off the Ghost Wolf. This could be a bit of trouble as Vendetta is activated. Corlick going to remove the silence, but multiple Gladiators Maledicts incoming. Uses a Demonic Gateway, but he's still low on health. This may be a Spirit Link Totem. Corlick trying to survive with Riptide alone, but he spent a lot of time being the target. If he survives, WizK will fall behind. Huge damage onto both Absturge and WizK from Aqua. Aqua's Dark Soul paying off there, getting a Spirit Link Totem. That may have been in a bit of a panic as Peekaboo was not in range to benefit from its effect. Now Peekaboo's desperate. He's switching over to Nick, and you know, No Name, they're facing elimination right now. They're on match point, but they're giving it their all.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we see Peekaboo go after Corlick for too long, things fall apart quite quickly for the move. So I really want to see Peekaboo just focus his efforts on Nick, on Corlick, or on Nick and Aqua once again, because it feels like if they can just slow down the damage, that's where the move is really going to get their lead. There was a good attempt over on the Corlick. They managed to get basically every defensive cooldown outside of Spirit Link, so they got the Gladiator's Medallion, they got the Astral Shift. Big cooldowns coming in from Corlick, and now an attempt over on the Nick. Silence coming in from WizK. Good little setup here from the move, but what are they going to be able to get done? Unfortunately, Nick uses Transcendence, he gets to safety, grapple weapon on Peekaboo, and that attempt from the move really didn't net anything.
I actually like Corlick's positioning. Usually as a healer, when you're being attacked as often as Corlick is, your first instinct is to try and run and hide and go to a pillar. But when you have a Destruction Warlock on your team, a pillar is your team's worst enemy. So it's actually beneficial to be where Corlick is in the middle of the map, out in the open field. So if Peekaboo overextends, Peekaboo's then vulnerable to crowd control and damage from the Destruction Warlock, and you work together as a team rather than as an individual on the healer to survive. So far, No Name, they're playing the matchup well, but if Absurge maintains mana deep into Dampening, the Destruction Warlock is going to become a liability for Peekaboo to take down. No Name need to try and figure out what to do when the moves stack up together. Potentially all three of them should move on top as well, relay their Demonic Gateway for a getaway if they need to later on. It looks like they want to push. Corlick and Nick and Aqua moving forward. Peekaboo's going to intercept Aqua, feared away now out in the midfield. It's amazing pathing for Aqua. Now into a double Mortal Coil, but he gets windshield by Absurge. Absurge protecting Peekaboo for now. Peekaboo on the run, Shadow stepping back to the pillar. Blind attempt here. Corlick trinkets into a silence. Touch of Karma going to be exchanged from Nick, and that was not the Vendetta. So it's likely that we see the move go after Nick again, trying to punish him for overextending. The team of No Name need to push in as a unit. If they push in as a unit, all three members, I think at this point they can kind of push the move over, because the move want to engage. They want to get a kill on Nick very soon. So while they try to go for the kill, they could actually be overwhelmed. I am curious to see if that is how they play it out. Peekaboo the target at the moment. There's the Vendetta attempt from Peekaboo. How are they going to stay alive through it? Earthen Wall Totem is activated, but at 21% dampening, it's not too effective. Multiple Gladiator's Maledicts, that's absorbing even further healing. Nick with that grapple weapon coming in clutch, removing Peekaboo's weapon and saving himself. Earthen Wall Totem's defense has fallen. Infernals have been called in. Aqua wants to get a kill. WizK tries to deflect them away, but Corlick breaks the Psychic Scream and moves in for a Hex. An Aura Mastery casted Hex with that Spirit Walker's Grace. Corlick's taken some moves away from Absurge, trying to play aggressive for the team and set up for the win, but the move just refused to die.
This is the point in the game where if the move can sort of weather the storm, the Dark Soul, as well as the Infernals, this is where they're going to really secure their advantage, and Aqua is going to be increasingly vulnerable. We're at 25% dampening. I really feel like this is where the move, they just sit on Aqua for the rest of the game. The Assassination Rogue, he's going to be able to shred through that defense, and this is the problem with the composition that No Name brought. In the late game, there's a big advantage. Shadow Step Kick coming in from Peekaboo onto Corlick. Aqua forced to use the Unending Resolve already, and if Peekaboo can just sit on him, WizK can throw at his damage over time effects, and Absurge throws in some purges. I just don't know what Corlick's really going to be able to do to keep him alive.
All right, Corlick, basically no mana left. Dampening's very high. Pressure onto both the Warlock and the Windwalker. Chaos Bolts from Aqua to try and counter pressure. Turbo Fists from Nick to try and peel Peekaboo off of himself. Nick then retreating across the map, but they left the Destruction Warlock behind. Aqua cannot move that fast, and he does not have cooldowns. WizK knows that. He's going to go into Void Form, immediately increase his damage and try and push for the kill. Corlick gets blinded by Peekaboo. He trinkets, but into a silence. It's always been followed up by a silence. Gladiator's Maledicts are activated onto Aqua. That's going to absorb a lot of healing. Ring of Peace knocks WizK out of the Earthen Walls defense. Nick trying to make a play here onto WizK for the kill, but his Destruction Warlock is just a liability at this point in Dampening. Peekaboo played for the win condition. The move made it all the way to deep Dampening and still have a lot of cooldowns left to make the trade. They can stay on top of the Warlock for quite some time and just end this. Corlick has nothing to work with. Aqua and Nick need to pull off a miracle.
Yep, Peekaboo's going to be able to put out tons of damage. Nice interrupt coming in from Peekaboo. WizK getting pressured. Nick on a solo mission right now. Is he going to be able to take down WizKay? Forces out the Dispersion, but they still have Spirit Link Totem and Void Shift. Big defensive cooldowns available for the move as they look to close out this game. WizKay charging in with Upsurge. The move in a 3-man push onto Aqua. What can he do? Corlick completely tapped on mana, and it's looking like lights out for No Name.
Yeah, Corlick is just waiting for mana to press Healing Wave, and Healing Wave is not even that effective. Peekaboo Trinkets for the kill. The move, get the clean 3-0 and advance to top 6.
Yep. Colo yesterday, obviously the newly founded best rogue in North America, and he was saying that there was potentially a chance that Drake wouldn't be playing on Storm today, that there was potentially some commotion in their team, but we do see him playing, so both the teams leading with their best foot forward.
Yeah, and I have to say, Drake, I'm a big fan of. I think he's an excellent Windwalker monk, definitely an up-and-comer in the scene. I think that the Storm has a lot of potential, especially with Drake on their team. Let's see what they can get done. Never Lucky, they're going to be looking to play aggressive. Dragon's Breath, full Ring of Frost onto Metaphors. Drake's going to be looking to shut down some damage. Finds the double leg sweep onto Majidin, onto Zach. Nice follow-up fear by Nozums. And we'll have to see what is Storm's strategy going to be in this game. Who are they going to be going after? It appears so far they're making a big swap, starting off on a Colo.
Yeah, but only getting Feint and Aura Mastery, so some preliminary cooldowns from Never Lucky, not super powerful ones. They're definitely going to be falling behind already with the Gladiator's Medallion burned on Metaphors and Nazem. So I'm curious how Never Lucky looked to set up for victory off the back of it. Rolling Vendetta. Colo retreats away, realizing Ironbark's defense is going to be more than enough. So Never Lucky will do these hit and runs. They'll just poke in, trade a cooldown, then run away. Poke in, trade a cooldown, run away. And eventually they actually create situations where the other team doesn't have an answer and then run them over. It's a hit and run play style, and it works really well for them, and they're able to achieve victory against teams like Cloud9 by playing super defensive and then just poking in and out over and over to find victory. Zach looks to set up. This is another push from Never Lucky. Drake is stalling it by interrupting Majidin and disarming Colo. Colo then moves to try and sap Metaphors out of the stun, but is unable to, now silencing him instead. But Metaphors is out of crowd control. It's now Storm's turn to counter-engage. He's going to bash up Zach. Majidin under fire, but behind the pillar, line of sighting the Warlock. Although still with the Windwalker, it's quite threatening. Zach's going to activate Avenging Wrath to heal. He would actually kind of like to activate that to do damage as well. We often see the Paladins use that cooldown to engage with damage onto the team as well as healing, as it amplifies both damage and healing. Zach doing a good job line of sight. He interrupts at the pillar, but then gets Ring of Peace back into line of sight of the Warlock. So he could be interrupted if he's not careful. Chaos Bolt flies in. Majidin's going to duck for cover. Wait for Nazem's Dark Soul to fade, as that is activated at the moment and allows the Destruction Warlock enhanced damage on their Chaos Bolts. Drake has been sitting on his Touch of Death for some time. I'm wondering if he's waiting for the Blessing of Protection to be baited out before going for it, or what his plan is with the Touch of Death.
We'll have to see. So many of these matchups we've seen with the Assassination Rogue and a Mage is essentially just a ticking time bomb. Eventually, Never Lucky with the Assassination Rogue and Fire Mage will be able to kill Nozem easily. There's no question about it. That's why Storm, they have to play aggressive. They have to be the playmakers. They need to make something happen in this game. Majidin, under fire right now, could be taking quite a bit of damage. This was his combustion, and he's forced to run away. Metaphor's in a polymorph, but there's just not enough damage coming in from Never Lucky. But like I said, as this game goes on, as we hit higher stages of dampening, if we do, if Storm can't close it out, I feel like Colo sitting on the Warlock is just going to be too much damage for them to heal through.
I mean, that could be exactly what Never Lucky looked to do. We saw that happen to Chanimals in the tournament last week. So if Never Lucky decide to just never engage and play defensive, wait for dampening, we could see Nazem fall similarly to how we saw Aqua fall even just in the last series. It's definitely a strategy that teams have been using against Destruction Warlocks for some times, because when you're out in the open, Chaos Bolt is probably going to kill you. When you're out in the open, Fear is probably going to crowd control you. So just staying at the pillar, bunkering down, waiting for the storm to be over, and then making a push for a kill under the Destruction Warlock is typically the safest strategy. When you're in a tournament facing elimination, safety first. Colo gets bursted here though, as he was pushing aggressively and has to trade some pretty powerful cooldowns from the Rogue class with Evasion and Cloak of Shadows out of the way. He's now an open target for Storm. Touch of Death still available, and this could be exactly what Drake was waiting for.
Yeah, Drake looking to get some damage rolling on Majidin, trying to slow down this setup just a little bit. If we look at mana, Never Lucky. Zach, he's ahead of Metaphors at this point. Metaphors is going to have to sneak away for a drink once again. If Majidin is able to play defensive in this situation, if they can just hold on they're going to start developing a lot of pressure over on a Nozem, but unfortunately so far that pressure really hasn't been found. The damage from Never Lucky has been a little bit underwhelming at this point in the game, and it's Majidin that's under fire. Nice interrupt coming in from Nozem onto Zach. What is Majidin going to be able to do? He gets the polymorph onto Drake, looking for crowd control on Metaphor, does manage to find the Ring of Frost, and now we set up a 3v1 situation. Nozem trying to deny with a double Mortal Coil onto Colo, onto Majidin. Good cross crowd control. Drake getting the double leg sweep, and I have to say, Majidin needs to do a little bit better of a job staying away from his teammate. Drake has been getting so many double leg sweeps in this matchup. When that happens, it's a mistake from your team, straight up. You should never really get caught into a double leg sweep. Barring a miracle, and I just feel like that's one thing that we could see Never Lucky doing a little bit better.
Big push here from Storm, still a lot of pressure on Majidin. 2 members of Never Lucky in a stun, denying some damage and healing, but they actually use their Gladiator's Medallions in the human racial to break out and then counter engage. I don't think they have enough crowd control for Metaphors. He is now out and free to heal. Mana is even, which is surprising. The Paladin, Rogue, Mage, you know, we'd say before it was a composition on a small battery and it would run out of power pretty quickly, but Zach manages to keep them charged long enough to find these deep dampening kills on the Destruction Warlocks, and this is why we're starting to see this composition a lot more, not only on the ladder, but as well in the tournament setting. Clutch spell lock on Zach while Colo is at low health. That's putting a lot of pressure on Never Lucky, but Drake wasn't there to really back it up. He's trying to move in now, but gets clotheslined by Colo, catching him in the stun. Meteor from Majidin. Iron Bark of Metaphors is going to deny the kill there, but that was not the Vendetta, so potential opportunity with Combustion and Vendetta. Drake lands a double stun once again onto Zach and Majidin. This has been the critique so far towards his positioning. They're obviously trying to avoid the Destruction Warlock at the pillar, but they also need to be able to separate far enough that Drake is not able to hit multiple targets and stun multiple targets. Metaphors uses Trinket on blind. This is the Vendetta push from Colo. This could net them the Unending Resolve if they can stay on target. Drake is trying to slow it down with the grapple weapon, but it's not really slowing down anytime soon. Metaphors gets through the counter spells and the kicks. He can cast some regrowth, so he needs to try and hold on that Unending Resolve, and manages to hold on to it. That was very important, so that deeper and dampening Nozem will have that cooldown to trade with the next Vendetta, potentially counter engage as a result, but I would still say that Never Lucky have the advantage.
Majidin looking for a Ring of Frost, unfortunately gets denied, missing the first one, got interrupted on the second as he tried to land it on Metaphors, who was stuck into a stun. Majidin is actually playing the short combustion talent. He's playing the fire starter, so every time he gets a fireball out, he can reduce the cooldown of his combustion. I think it's a great choice in this particular matchup, being trained down by a Windwalker monk with the backup of a Destruction Warlock. Getting off Greater Power Blast is incredibly unlikely, so I think that talent is going to be good for the consistent pressure coming in from Never Lucky, but it's Storm that has most of the momentum. Double Dragon's Breath, can he get the double ring? Nicely done by Majidin. That was a great setup. Now knows him in the 3v1 situation. If they have any more crowd control on Metaphor, this could just be the end of the game, or at least the Unending Resolve coming in from Nozem.
Big push here. They need a bit more crowd control, but it doesn't look like they have it. Drake is going for Touch of Death. Blessing of Protection immediately removes that. I feel like Drake should have just been going for Touch of Death just to rotate through Blessing of Protections faster. He's held onto it for so long for Zach to just instantly answer it. Although maybe at some point they should actually switch to Zach. We did see the Paladin's weakness by being a target earlier on when we saw Corlick playing the Paladin, so potentially switching to him in the near future during a Blessing of Sacrifice, or just right now with a Bash. Good opportunity for Storm there, trying to set up for a kill on Zach, but now they need to focus on surviving as the table begins to turn. Metaphors is counterspelled into a Hammer of Justice. This is going to be the longest crowd control chain if you can bank it off the back of a counterspell, but he didn't get the Ring of Frost and actually needs to Ice Block. Counter engaged on their push, and now Never Lucky. I'm not so certain that this game is still in their hands.
Zach in a fear, but he has a lot of cooldowns he can work with. He has the Ultimate Sacrifice, he has his Divine Shield, Majidin forced into the Cauterize. This is scary time. Zach does have increased healing right now. He could keep Majidin alive. He needs to make sure he's getting out of Holy Light. If he can land a few more of those, Majidin will get topped off, but it's Drake who's crowd controlled behind the pillar. Colo's starting to really tear into Nozem at this point in the game, and this is when it becomes really scary as that Destruction Warlock by Nozem. He managed to hold on to a lot of his offensive cooldowns, and he can sort of counter pressure Colo and Majidin away. Drops the Infernals, he has the Dark Soul. If Metaphors can keep him up just a little bit longer, I could see Storm pushing Never Lucky over.
All right, let's see if they can pull it off here. There's basically no mana left for either team. Zach makes what possibly his final exchange of cooldowns, Divine Shield and Blessing of Sacrifice. A nice combo at this point in Dampening, as the Sacrifice's redirected damage will be immune by the Divine Shield, but he doesn't have mana. He could get swapped to again. The leg sweep actually whiffs. Colo is still just low on health. The entire team is low on health at this point, but a double Ring of Frost. Mageddon goes for the clutch play to try and close the game out before they run out of time. Can Colo find the kill? They Blessing of Protection off the grapple weapon so that Colo can stay on target and maximize his damage. It's do or die to kill Nazem. They have to kill the Warlock on this push. They have nothing left to stay alive should they not be able to find the kill. They're so close to getting it, but they get denied. Nazem gates away. Metaphors follows him. He needs some big heals if he can hold on. Zach has nothing left. Nazem just taking a beating at the moment. Drake is polymorphed. There was no dispel on that. He got left behind because Drake was crowd controlled. It's the only reason that Never Lucky are even still alive, but now all three members going to connect. Big power play from Storm. They have stayed alive long enough to where Zach has absolutely nothing left, but is still somehow managing to strong arm through the push. I have no idea how Zach is doing it. If he can make it to about another 9 seconds, he'll have his Avenging Wrath. If he can clutch in just one Holy Light, maybe they can pull it off. Zach is literally a legend right now, healing with absolutely nothing. Colo on 1%. Metaphors is going to end up killing him. Colo stuns him for 1 second. They counterspell Nazem. Colo holds on at 1%. He gets crowd control on the event.
They're going to win.
He's going to go down. He gets one Holy Shock. He gets in. How is he alive? Zach keeps Colo alive at 1%
Evasion.
for the better part of a minute straight. Colo's trying to push for the kill, but he's disarmed. He can't. He needs to try and run away, but Drake is maybe just going to push him over. Colo's Mortal Cold into a Chaos Bolt. Big Chaos Bolt. Colo's on the run, still with absolutely nothing left at 10%. Ring of Peace bounces him back in midfield. He shadow steps over to the Warlock to escape, but there is nowhere left to run. A valiant hold from Never Lucky, but Storm just kept.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how it plays out. That's the theme we will be watching throughout the weekend. But here, Never Lucky do lock it in, and they look to tie up the series against Storm.
Yeah, and I think in general, Windwalker Monks are great defense against this composition. Drake, he's going to be able to use the Ring of Peace. Of course, Turbo Fist is a great snare. He has the Tiger's Lust for Nozem, and he's going to be able to put out a lot of cleave damage on Valido and Zach if they're going to be running after Nozem. So I don't actually think Storm has an unwinnable matchup here. I think it is slightly in favor of Never Lucky, but I definitely think Storm can get good counter pressure in this game and end up landing a kill.
I'm very curious to see if the new roster of Storm, formerly assembled from the dynamic duo that is known as Metaphors and Maldiva, now a new roster coming together to try and take on the summer season, making its top 8, taking a point off our Summer Cup 1 champions already, and showing potential to be able to take the entire series as well. I really appreciate all the newcomers into the tournament scene. It's nice to see some of the more veteran teams be challenged and not just have such an easy time, although so far it looks pretty easy to be killing Nazem. He's very low on health, exchanging powerful defensive cooldowns just to stay alive amidst this initial assault from Never Lucky. Way of the Crane activates from Colo, gets crowd controlled by Metaphor. It's important to deny Way of the Crane from a Mistweaver. It amplifies their damage quite a lot, so Ring of Peace going to be bouncing both teams back and forth out of its defense actually, but they dealt with the Way of the Crane effectively. They crowd controlled and avoided it. Now that damage will be lost, and now Storm have a chance to attack. Metaphors with the re-stealth stun on Zach, applying a lot of pressure and actually netting a touch of karma. Good counter engagement from Storm, certainly not falling to pieces despite that huge initial attack onto their Warlock.
Yep, Nozem looking to get some counter pressure rolling onto Valido, but unfortunately it's really hard to take down that Death Knight at this point in the game with the amount of self-healing that he has. An interrupt onto Colo. Zach could actually be in a little bit of trouble. He's caught into a stun, into a Mortal Coil. If they have the damage, they might be able to take him down. Colo forced the Trinket. He trades out the Revival. He has the Life Cocoon, but he's opting to hold onto it, using the 3-minute cooldown, Revival instead, and that will keep Zach alive. Valido nice and healthy, as Never Lucky looks to make another offensive push on Nozem. He just used the Demonic Gateway. He doesn't really have an opportunity to run at this point. There's no mobility left, and now Valido and Zach can really rip in.
All right, let's see what Never Lucky can get done here, going back onto their bread and butter, Windwalker Death Knight. I think it's just so impressive that Never Lucky can flip. Colo was dealing damage in the first game, now he's healing in this game, and they can do it so seamlessly. This team could be a strong roster if they polish up their plays and get a bit more consistent. then they could definitely be a top contender. But the consistency seems to be their issue at the moment. They're sometimes on top of the world, playing phenomenally, and then other times just falling to pieces and totally obliterated. So let's see if Neverlucky can clean it up. So far in this attack, they're being owned, quite frankly. They got this completely turned on their head. Kolo's Way of the Crane shut down. Zach barely stays alive. Life Cocoon and Diffuse Magic traded out at the same time to keep him afloat. But now Neverlucky look to counter-engage after Metaphors. Big swap onto the healer. He is running that Feral Affinity, so he is going to be like a glass cannon on that healer. He uses Demonic Gateway at such low health. They break the paralysis, unfortunately. That would have held Metaphors in place long enough to catch up. Now it looks like they're going to abandon him entirely.
And Metaphor is actually ahead on mana, which is kind of surprising. Kolo's been playing really aggressive with the Way of the Crane. Drake actually using the Touch of Death. Who's he going after? It looks like a Valido. Are they going to be able to take him down? Grapple weapon with the... I really feel like the grapple weapon usage could have been a little bit better. Typically, you want to wait till after the burst damage comes to deny the Death Strikes. If you use it too early, Valido can just Death Strike after Touch of Death, and the result is just too much self-healing from the Death Knight. So I think that could have been timed a little bit better from Storm. Zach forced to use his Touch of Karma right now, and you can actually tell Nozem and Drake, they have been getting good pressure in this matchup. Kolo has been unable to drink so far, and I don't think he's ever going to be able to drink with that Fell Hunter just chasing him down.
Big push here from Zach with Touch of Death onto Nozem, but Metaphors trades with Ironbark and easily shakes it off. Now Kolo actually presses Life Cocoon almost rotationally there onto Zach. I don't think that was entirely necessary. That could be an opening now for Storm to get a kill just due to a lack of cooldowns, but they've put Kolo on Fear Diminishing Return. He can now make a push with Way of the Crane, and Way of the Crane can add enough damage to net a kill. There's no Ironbark to stop it. Kolo gets interrupted. We likely see Way of the Crane as you can activate it while interrupted. Kolo moves in. Way of the Crane going to get popped. 3 members of Neverlucky going to be pounding away at the Warlock. He tries to go for a triple Shadow Fury to peel them off. Isn't able to find it. Then tries to Fear. The Diminishing Return just fading. A bit surprising to not see Kolo not trinket out of this and keep pushing forward with that Way of the Crane. Doesn't want to leave himself open to a swap potentially into the future, but Zach has been the high priority target for such a long time. He transcendences, but he transcendences away from Kolo. Kolo rolls across the map to get back to Zach, healing him quickly from that attack. Metaphors was getting aggressive. Now they're trying to switch to him. He realizes, okay, I can't stand on top of you. Has to vacate the premises. Drake sets up a double stun with the paralysis onto Kolo. Good setup here from Drake. Good follow-up by Nozem. Solid play overall. 4 seconds away from Touch of Karma. 3 seconds away. 2 seconds away. 1 second. Kolo barely connecting a Life Cocoon, and Zach will stay alive, but once again, the mana even, which is still surprising, as you would expect the Destruction Warlock to be so far behind in this matchup. Storm are still looking solid. They've worked through most of Valido's defense as well as Zach's, and those 2 targets are looking juicy.
Yeah, Kolo gets Spear Hand Strike by Drake. Big setup is emptier onto Valido, but manages to shrug off that Touch of Death. There's been a lot of Touch of Deaths committed onto Valido. They might be able to take him down here. They've gotten a lot of his defensive cooldowns. Drake trying to get all over him, but unfortunately the Chains of Ice, the Disable route, going to be a little bit too much. Shadow Fury coming in from Nozem. Drake with a double Fist of Fury. Zach counter Fist of Fury to deny the damage, but a nice crackling Jade Lightning from Drake knocks him away and denies. Metaphor actually sitting down. Is he out of combat? Is he drinking? If he can recover his mana, this is going to be massive for Storm. They turn the this map on its head, and now Neverlucky is the team that has to play defensive. Zach using the Touch of Karma. Metaphors in a prime position with a lot of defensive cooldowns and a lot of mana to sort of push through, and Neverlucky, they're running out of time. Kolo activates the Way of the Crane, but that's the last little bit of mana he has. Right now, Neverlucky, it's do or die. They have to take down Nozem. They might be able to do it.
That grapple weapon onto the Mistweaver, I'm not a fan of. I think that could have been much better used onto the Death Knight. Not stopping too much damage. Triple stun. Beautiful setup from Neverlucky. No defense left. Suddenly Storm are left empty-handed, but somehow still alive, but not alive long enough. Metaphor's got a drink, but I think they ended up making a big mistake when they used...
Really mattered. Kolo was completely out of mana. Storm was basically at the finish line, but Drake with honestly a really bad grapple weapon onto Kolo, not really getting too much done. The overlap of Ironbark and the Unending Resolve, just those few little mistakes outside of honestly a really well-played game is what ended up losing it. So We'll have to just make sure their gameplay is a little bit cleaner in this game. Nice double leg sweep attempt here coming in from Never Lucky as they look to get aggressive onto it. Seems like Drake.
Shows how close the matchup is. You can't afford to make even one mistake here. This is an elimination series. Never Lucky tie it up, but now we're going to Storm territory as they bring it to a gigantic map, being Ashamane's Fall, looking to exploit that open space to allow the Destruction Warlocks some free range damage. Infernals have been called in. Nazums is looking to ramp up for big burst, but he's Ring of Peace trampolined. He's not able to cast whatsoever during that amplified damage, and now is looking to try and sneak in a Chaos Bolt, but there's going to be multiple interrupts and stuns. I see it's so unlikely that he finds it. He lands one Shadow Fury, he fake casts the Chaos Bolt, but no one falls for the fake and then gets interrupted on the Bolt during Dark Soul. Nazum's totally getting shut down, but at the same time, Drake is carrying the damage while Nazum's is being shut down. Zach has to make a trade. They punch right through the Touch of Karma with a huge Chaos Bolt. Nazum's under pressure is still showing that he has a lot of damage.
It definitely does, and Zach not completely out of it yet with the Life Cocoon traded out by Colo as well as his Touch of Karma. Nazum taking a little bit of damage, but so far Metaphors has been doing a good job managing his mana, managing his cooldowns, and keeping Nazum alive. Drake forcing Zach to run away. Now coming back, trying to get some damage rolling onto Valido. And the one thing Never Lucky really has going for them is Valido is just such a difficult target to take down. If they really need to, Zach can run away, and it's not that dangerous for Valido to just be left alone in midfield with Nazum. You can't really get bursted down on a Death Knight, at least not at this point in the game. So I feel like for Never Lucky, if they are in trouble, as long as Zach doesn't mismanage his Transcendence, he can run away.
All right, big attack on Zach. Potentially Storm moving to match point. Manages to clutch out around the corner with Ring of Peace zoning out the enemy team of Storm to recover. Colo is spell locked. That's opening up opportunities to kill Valido. They time it with Grapple Weapon, bursting him down with Fist of Fury. Triple Shadow Fury, good punish. Nazum's going to Demonic Gateway. Metaphor stuns Valido to try and stall Death Strike as long as possible. They get Anti-Magic Shield. Not going to be too big of a deal there for Valido. Pretty easy exchange there of cooldowns. Going to be rotated back up for Infernals in a minute, so no real consequence. Zach has Touch of Karma available again, so Never Lucky are looking stable in this position. However, due to the map selection from Storm, Metaphors is going to be able to have mana deep into Dampening to power heal Nazums, as I believe Metaphor is also running Nourish. Very powerful honor talent when playing with Destruction Warlocks, as usually you can't commit your interrupts onto Nourish. You need to be stopping the Warlock, so you can use that inefficient slow heal to save a lot of mana and power heal through the damage as a result in this specific pairing. Never Lucky did a swap to Metaphors. They got Bark Skin from him, so showing that potentially they want to do an all-in on the healer here with Touch of Death available shortly on Zach.
Cole in a paralysis. Valido taking quite a bit of damage. Grapple Weapon coming in from Drake once again. Can they burst him down in that Grapple Weapon? After it fades, Death Strike available for Valido, getting a big amount of hit points back. We can see pressure has been mostly in favor of Storm during this game. There's been a lot of damage over onto Zach. He's had to play a lot more defensive than we saw in the last game. And I'm kind of curious why Storm is sticking with this particular matchup, why they're not going to be subbing in Sheep God and playing the Mage Lock Druid. I feel like that's a great matchup for them, but unfortunately, they're not going to be doing it, and maybe it just shows their confidence in this matchup, realizing how close game number 2 was. They just played it a little bit safer. Definitely could have got that victory. Metaphors gets gripped in, asphyxiate stun on him. Double Mortal Coil coming in to deny the attempt from Nozum. Zach's under fire. Double leg sweep coming in from Drake. Counter pressure engage from Storm. Full Fear onto Colo. What is Zach going to be able to do? Doesn't look like they have too much burst damage available, and Life Cocoon does trade out from Colo to keep Zach alive.
All right, good trade from Colo, but Infernals have been called in with Touch of Death. They're going for a big push on Valido. He responds immediately. Icebound Fortitude to get out of a stun, reduce damage, and activate Anti-Magic Zone to soak up that huge attack. Colo then leads the charge with Way of the Crane. Metaphors denies the Way of the Crane benefit using Iron Bark, and in this position they haven't panicked. They didn't overlap, so Touch of Death from Zach can be now denied from Unending Resolves. Storm keep focused here, maintain their mana, don't overlap their defensive cooldowns. Certainly they can pull off victory as they were able to do in the first round, I believe. Touch of Karma from Zach. He's actually trying to push forward with the Touch of Death at the same moment in time. This means that both Valido and Zach are limited on defense. Dampening, I believe, about to kick in pretty shortly. They've got crowd control in the Death Knight and the Mistweavers. This is a good attempt to kill Zach. Zach's on the run. Metaphors is actually hunting after him with that Feral Affinity as well as Drake. Zach paralysis Drake while Colo's crowd controlled. That buys time for Colo to get out and then life cocoon and stabilize. Cooldowns have subsided at this point for both teams, so the damage is going to go into a little bit of a lull. Metaphor's realizing that, is taking the opportunity to drink and regenerate mana, knowing that there's no significant threat. Good observation there. That's going to bank him full mana, but now he's crowd controlled. Potentially Nazem goes down if he's not careful. Very low on health, goes for a double Mortal Coil. The Mortal Coil crowd controlling both Valido and Zach and healing the Warlock as well. Perfectly timed while Metaphors was crowd controlled. Valido taking a beating again here. If Storm can maintain mana into Dampening, certainly the Death Knight is going to become the best target in the game. Valido grips Nazem back to the pillar so that Valido can use the pillar to line of sight. An interesting reposition. Then Ring of Peace to knock Nazem even further to the box. This is to try and bait Metaphors, Drake, and Nazem's to stack up, and if they do, they can maybe get a triple leg sweep combo. We saw that's how they got victory on Hook Point. So this Death Grip reposition of Valido could be anticipatory to set up a kill later on.
And we'll have to see if they can actually get anything going off that reposition. Cola gets stunned up, Nazem still under fire, and that last attempt on Nazem was actually really scary for Storm, but they didn't panic, they didn't overlap, realizing the Iron Bark was going to be more than enough, and we see Metaphors, he's going down for a drink once again. Colo is able to deny with a spinning crane kick, keeping tabs on Metaphors. Where are you hiding, Metaphor? Colo, if he can consistently do that in that match, or in this matchup, it's going to be huge for his team, because the Mistweaver Monk should have a late game mana advantage, especially if the Restoration Druid isn't able to drink. So that's going to be really important for Never Lucky moving forward. Still good pressure on Zach, on Valido. And honestly, Storm's been doing a great job going after Zach. The problem is, Colo with the short cooldown Life Cocoon, Zach with the short cooldown Touch of Karma, they've just been able to consistently rotate through these defensives in order to stay alive. But big damage coming in from Nazem, from Drake. Valido could actually fall. Anti-Magic Shell gets dropped out. Touch of Death being used by Zach. They're looking to get hyper-aggressive. But you can see Nazem, he has Infernals, he has Dark Soul, Touch of Death available for Drake. Storm basically has every single offensive cooldown ready to go, and they're pulling the trigger. They're going after Valido. Can they take him down, Sid?
They need to crowd control Colo. He's got Way of the Crane up. There's no way you're killing a team through Way of the Crane, so bit of a blunder maybe, but finally setting up some crowd control. I'd love to see a swap to Colo, actually. Maybe try and just gun down for the healer. Nazem's has ramped up to maximum power. Big Chaos Bolt comes in, connects onto Valido. Could just close the series out if he's able to find a second one. Colo is interrupted instantly by Nazem's. Nazem's carrying right now. Drake is trying to do all the dirty work and finish the job, but Colo is in trouble as well. He can't heal 2 members. He can't heal 3 members. All 3 members are just dead. Valido trinkets grapple. He doesn't have runic power. He can't Death Strike. There's still just 3 targets that are dead. I don't know how they haven't fallen over at this point. Storm just need to push a little bit harder. Drake gets gripped away from the finishing blow. Metaphors is trying to finish them off in Feral Affinity form, but actually isn't able to. Somehow Colo has clung his team back into the fight.
Storm cannot believe their eyes. All 3 members of Never Lucky sub 10% health, now relatively healthy. What is Storm going to be able to get done? That was their big offensive push, and now Never Lucky, they can strike back. But Colo, he's completely out of mana. Another Chaos Bolt lands by Nazem. Zach has to run. He's got the Touch of Karma, but doesn't want to have to trade it out just yet. Unfortunately, might have to. Fist of Fury from Drake gets denied down to a full leg sweep. Zach could easily fall. Gladiator's Medallion, as well as that Touch of Karma, keeps Zach alive. And Colo, he just throws caution to the wind, uses the last little bit of mana for the Way of the Crane, looking for a similar offensive push we saw in game number 2, but he gets feared up. And this could be disaster for Never Lucky. Colo really committed his mana with that Way of the Crane. He topped off his team, but unfortunately, he's got no mana left.
No mana left in the tank, and if the Windwalker Death Knight doesn't work out here in this specific matchup, we may have to see a composition change once again. Spelllock secured from Nazem. Nazem has been carrying in this fight, despite being a new named Warlock to the tournament scene. He's certainly shining here today for Storm. Can they keep going? It's a race. Both Touch of Deaths are activated at the same time, and neither Windwalker has Touch of Karma. This is going to be an explosive finish. Drake barely holds on, Zach barely holds on, but Colo's in crowd control and Metaphors isn't. Zach retreats behind the pillar. Nazem's is moving over, actually gets gripped into the pillar. Colo needs to try and fake cast again. Manages to get through the spell lock for now, stabilize the team. Drake under a bit of pressure if he's not careful and stays overextended. Metaphors is almost tapped on mana. Double leg sweep secured. Chaos Bolt immediately interrupted though. They need to stop Chaos Bolts at all costs for the rest of the game. Dampening at that critical mass point for Valido to survive. Colo's Gladiator's Medallion is burned through to break out of that fear. Cooldown so limited on each side. Drake looking to try and stay alive until his next touch of Karma, but Valido only has anti-magic zone. If he's crowd controlled during that, he won't be able to activate it. Colo gets stunned by Metaphors. Metaphor's trying to add damage to the fight with that Feral Affinity as he can. Nazem gets Ring of Beast out of line of sight. Nourishes come in. That Nourish talent clutch at this moment in time where they can't interrupt Metaphors. He's getting a lot of big, efficient heals and able to maintain his mana deep into the fight. Touch of Karma forced from Zach. Colo's team falling behind once again. Can Colo keep them going? He's got no mana left for Way of the Crane. If he could just press Way of the Crane, his whole team would go to full health, but he doesn't have mana to use it. Life Cocoon gets shredded. Nazem's at the same time. His defense is starting to crack as he used Unending Resolve. Chaos Bolts are getting soaked by the Icebound Fortitude and anti-magic zone, but at this point, Dampening, that doesn't even seem to be like enough. One more Chaos Bolt. Valido's going to go down. Nazem fake casts. He goes for it. Anti-magic shield. Gonna soak it, but how much? Chaos Bolt connects. Valido holds on by a thread. Another spell lock on Colo.
Nice double
into a
sweep.
stun. Beautifully timed. Another interrupt from Drake onto Colo. Valido falls as a result. Storm play it out and put Never Lucky on match point. That great to kill Metaphors because they're gonna stack on the boxes while they do it. So I agree. I think they should have gone for a better map, something a little bit less stacked up, but I do anticipate that they're going for Metaphors' life in this game.
Yeah, and I mean, Mageddon is going to be going over to that Temporal Shield. I really feel like it's a good chance, especially, or a good talent swap, as he is the main target in this matchup. I'll have to see what they decide to get done, going after Drake. And I think the small map, this is the one benefit they have, is they can actually run down Drake. They can make an all-in push, but Drake is a very good defensive Windwalker Monk. I think he's going to know exactly what he needs to do in this situation. Already trading out the Touch of Karma. He's already used Diffuse Magic, but he's across the map. He's in a safe situation right now. Mageddon charging in. Metaphor is in a good position to top him off as Zach charges in. Do they have the damage to take him down? Double Leg Sweep comes in. Drake trying to respond with the Fist of Fury to just slow down Never Lucky a little bit in this situation. Full kidney shot now on Drake. What is he going to be able to do?
Big push. This is the Avenging Crusader. Metaphors needs to Trinket blind, but if he gets polymorphed here, it could be the end of the game. Potentially a game 5 between these two teams. Mageddon's trying to find a polymorph. Drake interrupts him. Metaphors has to avoid polymorph at all costs. If he is caught into that, then the Windwalker Monk is going to be just totally decimated. Metaphors and Drake realize this is probably not a good time to attack. Let's try and run away, stay alive until the next touch of Karma. So they're going to retreat away to the boxes. Colo engages, dropping a smoke bomb that stacks Metaphors up for a Dragon's Breath, Ring of Frost, but they don't land the Ring of Frost. Mageddon then gets Mortal Coil, looks for the poly, gets stopped by Drake. Good stops on this crowd control on the Metaphors. Now he can easily heal Drake. Potentially an opportunity for Storm to counter engage. The initial assault of Never Lucky has been thwarted away, and now Storm get to be aggressive.
Yeah, Drake into another kidney shot. Do they have the damage to take him down? He's just full health. Metaphor is easily able to heal through. Now Drake in a situation. Touch of Karma rolling back up. Diffuse Magic rolling back up. And now they're looking to punish. Mage in a leg sweep. No Trinket into a Shadow Fury. Chaos Bolt lands. Temporal Shield might be enough to keep the Cauterize away. He's going to be able to top himself off with that Temporal Shield. Nice, and that is the defensive talent choice that I like. Now Zach, he didn't have to overcommit defensives. There was no Ice Block traded out. I think that's exactly what Never Lucky needed, but I don't necessarily think going after Drake is the best in this matchup. They made a big push, but it didn't work out.
I don't like that they're still going after the Windwalker. I guess they've got crowd control, but Drake's on the run. He's going to go across the map. This way, Mageddon has to pick. Is he going to crowd control the healer or attack Drake? He can't do both at the same time. And because he can't do both, Drake can then just easily avoid the rogue and then get back to Metaphors as the crowd control ends. So if Drake keeps up this kiting pattern and it isn't caught out, then I don't think he is the best target overall. Sure, you can try and cheese the Windwalker, burst him down, pop off his Touch of Karma, but if that doesn't work, you might have to go for a different strategy. Otherwise, the Windwalker Monk is going to be extremely slippery. What I was hoping to have happen there is they got Metaphor's Trinket with Blind, then Vendetta and Combust rotated up before his Gliders Medallion. They could have switched to him, tried to kill him. I feel like switching between the Druid and the Windwalker before Dampening is probably their best strategy, and then in Dampening, you just ride the Warlock until he dies. Or you just play the Never Lucky strategy where you sit behind the boxes and avoid them until Dampening and do the Warlock strategy. One of these three choices. But so far, I don't see any real pressure just yet. They need to be able to crowd control Metaphors at the same time as attacking Drake, but if Drake just keeps kiting, they're not going to have that situation. Mageddon's being pressured. They've left Nazem's the Warlock open for a long time. Mageddon with a clutch blink right before the leg sweep, so he's going to avoid a lot of the damage as a result of that blink. Very important to avoid that stun. Now he's able to kite with Blessing of Freedom out of the Fists of Fury. Good defensive avoidance of Drake's pressure. Drake transcendences as soon as Metaphors gets crowd controlled. He's running away from Colo, but Colo does finally connect. 3 members of Never Lucky attacking Drake with limited defense if they keep Metaphors out of the fight, but they're not able to. Metaphors comes out, activates Iron Bark, quick Swift Mend, and Drake is going to be A-OK. Now Drake looks to counterattack. He's supported by Nazums with the double Mortal Coils. Majidin blinks out of line of sight of the Chaos Bolt. Kolo's going to run around the corner. Zac is still stunned. Majidin's in midfield. Big opportunity for the Warlock. He baits Kick on Fear, then goes for Chaos Bolt. This could be a big hit from Nazums if Majidin isn't careful. 1 Chaos Bolt, gets Dragon's Breath on the second. Nazums fears Majidin again in the midfield, gets the second Chaos Bolt, double stun. Nazum's putting out a ton of pressure right now. Zac gets Ring of Peace off the side. Majidin's out of line of sight. They reposition instantly, connect some big heals, and manage to stay alive, but that was the blessing of sacrifice of Zac, so at least a powerful cooldown forced out of Never Lucky. It's important to note that they're on match point, and I'm not confident in their capability right now to take this.
Yeah, things are looking good for Storm. Drake's been doing a really good job hiding around the map, finally in a kidney shot. Colo needs to find the damage, but Metaphor has just been doing a great job. Honestly, Storm is just firing on all cylinders, defensively, offensively. They're doing exactly what they need to win this matchup. You can see Metaphor, he's positioned very far away. Drake's going to trade out the Touch of Karma to allow Metaphor to sit down and drink. He's going straight to full mana, and there's nothing that Never Lucky can do about it at this point in the game. The only opening they have is the fact that Drake, he used his Touch of Karma, and his Transcendence is actually in midfield right now, so we really need to see Drake reposition that portal. He is going after Colo. Touch of Karma does get, Blessing of Protection is traded out by Colo. He has to run away, and now Never Lucky, they're forced in a situation where they actually have to play defensive.
Yep, they're going to be running away. They still have that Train the Warlock and Deep Dampening strategy in their back pocket, but I don't know if they have enough mana to make it on Zac. He's so low already. We're only at 5%. Majidin's trying to get crowd control, but gets denied here by Nazums. Once again, Nazum's playing great for a newcomer Warlock to the tournament scene. He's protecting Metaphors during these moments, but actually Metaphors gets caught by Majidin. Majidin with a clutch poly. Drake could be in a bit of trouble if he can't get away. He uses Ring of Peace to try and stop Colo from reconnecting on the boxes. Nazums definitely can't get over there, so he's forced to attack Majidin. Beautiful Ring of Peace from Drake. He's trying to push out, but he actually doesn't have much defense. Fists of Fury going to be denying Colo's damage, but Majidin is raining down fireballs. There is no defense still for another 17 seconds. That Touch of Karma, very important, but there's actually a Blessing of Protection. There's potential here for Storm to throw if they're not careful defensively. Crowd control has begun from Never Lucky. It's followed up on towards Metaphors, but now Colo and Majidin are stunned from Drake. They look to counter-engage. They're not able to find any damage. Metaphors is now out of the crowd control. Metaphors and Drake repositioned at the staircase, although potentially look to get aggressive. How are they going to navigate through this? Vendetta available. They have Karma to trade, but then there's Blessing of Protection to remove that Touch of Karma, so that's certainly a win condition. We could see an attack on Metaphors with a Vendetta and a Avenging Crusader, potentially go for an all-in onto him. I think that Never Lucky are just trying to stay alive, though. They seem to be just retreating around the outskirts of the map, looking to try and avoid a fight and then bank victory off of the safe kill on the Warlock Deep and Dampening, but I'm not sure they have the resources to make it that far.
Majidin made a big mistake. He used his Ice Block offensively when there was no offense. No one was going to die in that situation. He just traded out his Ice Block for a leg sweep, and they didn't follow it up whatsoever. So now Majidin, he's behind an Ice Block. He's not a Frost Mage. He doesn't have Cold Snap to reset it. That's his only Ice Block in this game, potentially. Zac really doesn't have too much left to work with, and Majidin could be a big opening for Storm as this game advances.
All right, let's see if they can punish that. Majidin a vulnerable target, Colo a vulnerable target, Zac with basically no mana left in the tank to keep this fight going, and they're on match point. They were Cup #1 champions, and they're almost going to be eliminated in 7th and 8th in the second Cup. And that is the one thing from Never Lucky, is that they need to be consistent. Some days they're great, other days they're not great. So here today, certainly not looking to be as on point as they were in Cup #1. But if they do ever become consistent, then they're going to be a strong contender, especially in the LAN environment. So let's see if they can clean it up here. We saw Zac clutch out in game #1 and hold the team together for a long time with nothing left. Perhaps he can do that again here for the team, give them some openings to try and end it. They're trying to go after Metaphors. They blind the Warlock. This is Desperation play from Never Lucky, and they're not even getting a Bark Skin. Drake denies it with the grapple weapon on Colo. Majidin in the spell lock. That swap is totally shut down. Metaphor sees an opening to jump in and potentially close out the game with the Feral Affinity. Extra damage. Huge Chaos Bolt onto Majidin. Still no Ice Block. Temporal Shield rolling along with the Cauterize. Zac pops Avenging Crusader. tries to amplify his healing and damage, but if he gets crowd controlled, it could be it. Drake in a bit of trouble here. They bop off the Karma. Offensive play from Neverlucky to stay alive in the tournament. Drake's on the run. He just needs to stay alive a bit longer and survive this attack. Metaphors is trying to jump back to his aid. Drake drops the Ring of Peace, so Colo can't connect, but he has to run back in line of sight of Metaphors, but they stack up for a double stun. They both trinket out to end the game. It's do or die. Drake needs to die, otherwise they're going to be out of time and out of cooldowns. He's still, once again, just avoiding the fight, kiting across with that flying serpent kick. Metaphors reconnects. Drake uses Fists of Fury to deflect Colo. He shadow steps behind the Fists of Fury to stun Drake through its parrying effect and potentially end the game. Huge attack from Neverlucky in those final moments to close it out and bring it to game 5.
Absolutely. In this matchup, in my opinion, and he changed it at the last second. That could have been very, very scary right off the bat.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is game 5 between Neverlucky and Storm. Winner of this advances to the top 6. Loser eliminated early. Neverlucky would be a disaster for them. And Storm, you know, they've had a good series. They've looked like the better team, and they're taking it to the biggest map in the pool to potentially secure this series.
I don't know if this is the best map for Storm, to be quite honest. I feel like Neverlucky, like we kind of saw in the last game, in the late game, they just kind of win. I mean, if they can just stay on a target, they have overwhelming damage with the Fire Mage, with the Paladin, with the Assassination Rogue. They just need one good setup, and I feel like on this large map, it's going to be easy for Neverlucky to run away and stall if they need to. It's not going to be easy for Nozem to try to chase them down and actually close out the game.
Looks like Storm are a bit hesitant to start. They want to make sure that Metaphors doesn't get sapped. That would be the most devastating way to start the fight, so they're going to get combat. Metaphors comes out of stealth and starts healing the target that's in combat, so sap is now no longer an option. Colo has to reconsider the strategy. Is he just going to open with Cheap Shot to start the crowd control for Majidin, or a Garrote Silence? Who are they going to go after is the other thing, because we didn't feel like Drake was a great target for the late game. The Warlock much better to be shut down. Drake is trying to stay on target, but polymorphed as we see Zach and Majidin running laps around the middle pillar. I mean, it looks so far like Neverlucky are fine to just sit in stealth and wait for Dampening. They open up on Drake to stop Majidin from going down through this initial attack. The Temporal Shield absorbed a lot of damage, but still a lot more available. Ring of Peace, unfortunately not actually connecting onto Majidin. He then is able to blink out of line of sight. It appears to be Neverlucky's strategy to just be running around this rectangular pillar, avoid the enemy team, and wait for Dampening. We saw this work against Cloud9. Let's see if it works here against Storm.
Yeah, Colo's just using his ranged dagger to put crippling poison on Nozem. He needs to make sure he maintains that. It's very difficult for a Destruction Warlock. Their mobility is severely limited in comparison to some other classes, and you can see it's just a slow walk for him to try to get on target. Does manage to find some damage on Colo. Colo in a bash, wasn't able to get the feint out unfortunately, but does manage to survive that assault. And now a lot of offense committed, honestly. Majidin just throwing out the combustion onto Metaphors, and they weren't able to get that much value. Metaphors just trading out the Barskin. It's a great trade for combustion, and hopefully Metaphors does survive because of it.
But it's a 1-for-1, so the next time they attack, it'll likely be a Vendetta, would be my prediction. Metaphors will trinket an Ironbark, and then the next time it'll be an Avenging Crusader. And if no one helps, I actually think Metaphors will die. This is assuming that Neverlucky can actually engage that succession of abilities. Otherwise, they could just abandon that entire line and just focus on surviving, maintaining Zach's mana, and looking for a kill deeper into Dampening. It looks to be like what they want to do. Attacking Drake, Metaphors jumps back in, is able to save him with Ironbark, although that wasn't any real cooldown, so Ironbark's defense potentially not necessary. Colo bashed up by Metaphors as Storm looked to push for a kill. Cloak of Shadows going to trade on that Chaos Bolt, although Cloak of Shadows is very powerful and long cooldown, so big win there for Storm.
Yeah, Drake trying to charge forward and do everything he can so Nozem can actually land some damage, but Neverlucky, they're just running away. Keep the damage up on Drake the best you can. Majidin, Zach, they're the main targets that really Storm can go after. Colo does get feared away into a Mortal Coil, grapple weapon as well. Are they going to be able to find any damage? Zach just positioned. Look at Zach's positioning right now. He's always an entire pillar away from Metaphor, Nozem, and Drake, able to just easily heal off his teammates. Zach on the Holy Paladin, he's been very mana efficient, so he can extend this game for quite some time. It's going to be Metaphors that likely has to sit down, try to recover his mana with a drink. Majidin making a little bit of a play here onto Nozem, but it's Colo that's in trouble. He's already used the Cloak of Shadows, paralysis on Zach, panic mode. Zach forced to trinket, uses the ultimate sacrifice as well. Colo manages to survive, but there's been no heals coming in from Zach. He needs to play catch up.
I think he wants to hold Avenging Crusader to go aggressive with it. maybe do an all-in, maybe bait Metaphor's Trinket on a blind. I mean, Never Lucky, they're basically just not even doing anything other than running away. That we haven't seen any sort of counter engagement. Finally, an attack here from Never Lucky. Ring of Peace gets disrupted. The entire attack whiffs. Now Colo in trouble once again. Storm seemed to have a more solidified game plan in terms of offense, focusing down Colo. Every time they bash or leg sweep, they've been getting valuable cooldowns from him, and eventually he's going to run out. So if Never Lucky don't kind of put this game back together, I think the series is going to slip away from them. Finally, another attack here on Nazums. They immediately activate that Unending Resolve, but its defense has not lasted very long. They Iron Bark to chain it together for extra damage reduction, but even still, Nazums barely holds on. He's actually trying to counterattack while being pressured. Big Chaos Bolt casted here onto Majidin. I believe it was fully absorbed by the Gladiator's Safeguard, so Majidin is going to be all right. We do see Never Lucky repositioning on the top of the balcony, realizing that potentially the open field downstairs on that rectangular pillar isn't going to play an advantage against a Destruction Warlock, instead wanting to use the balcony and these side pillars to try and line of sight more frequently. An interesting adaptation from Never Lucky, but we'll have to see if it is actually effective.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly what can get done. Still Polymorph secured on Metaphors, knows them. Took a big hit. That was a good push from Never Lucky. They managed to get some solid defensive cooldowns, including that Unending Resolve. We have just entered Dampening. Colo's going to have Vendetta rolling up in around 50 seconds. Majidin has Combustion locked and ready to go. If they use Combustion and get Iron Bark in 20 seconds, 30 seconds, then Colo's going to have the Vendetta. They'll have the Avenging Crusader, and they could try to push through the Iron Bark of Metaphors and maybe just take Nosem down quite early on in the game. So I would like to see Majidin just trade out the Combustion, try to just get some defensive cooldowns rolling, and that kind of desyncs the Iron Bark and allows Colo and Zach to get really aggressive with the Vendetta and the Avenging Crusader.
All right, let's see if Never Lucky can set up that situation in that win condition. They definitely need to put the game back together if they want to take the series and stay alive in the tournament and have a good opportunity of earning enough points to qualify. They dropped the Ring of Peace on the smoke bomb, but Colo was able to connect. Metaphors is in a full polymorph. This is dangerous time here for Nazums, but they could counter engage at in the same breath if they can manage to land these Infernals. Metaphor is still crowd controlled. He has Iron Bark, needs to use that as soon as possible, likely. Although, if he can get away with it, it would be the most benefit. We see Never Lucky giving up on the kill. They try and retreat, but they stack up for a double leg sweep. Metaphor's there for that Feral Affinity as well, dishing in a bit of extra damage onto 3 members of the team. Zach has Avenging Crusader. He could activate that and bounce back the team with 1 Judgment, but he's reluctant to activate it. The longer he waits, the further he falls behind. Now spell locked on his heel. Colo on the run, but Drake in hot pursuit. Still 3 members low on health. What are you going to do, Zach? Somehow you're just going to power through it with just Holy Light? This is going to be very difficult for Zach to heal through if he does not activate the Avenging Crusader. They go for Hammer of Justice, but now Zach is feared, falling further behind. The Avenging Crusader finally gets activated. Big Judgment heals the whole team. He is still crowd control, but I think at this point it's not enough crowd control. It could also be that it costs a lot of mana, so Zach doesn't want to have to use Avenging Crusader unless he absolutely has to. In that situation, I feel like it was necessary. He's still ahead of mana against that of Metaphors, but Nazums is taking a beating, and we've seen this time and time again. Assassination Rogue versus Destruction Warlock and Dampening almost never goes in favor of the Destruction Warlock. Unending Resolve trades from Nazums. That's reducing some damage, but Metaphors is in a full polymorph. Unending Resolve is going to be fading shortly, and so long as they keep getting more polymorphs, Nazums could easily die here and now. Tournament lives on the line. Managing to hold out just a little bit longer, but 1 big hit, Nazums is going to fall. Metaphors can't handle the damage. Never Lucky are going to take game 5 and stay alive in the tournament.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, this series was
despite 8.1.5 being around for quite some time, so let's see how this plays out. I do anticipate that M2KC got a bit of an edge in terms of the blind pick. The Windwalker Monk, a bit of a liability against this Rogue Mage Paladin comp, and similarly to how we saw the Destruction Warlock go down in Dampening, I think the Shadow Priest is a similar liability later in the fight. M2KC are going to start the assault with crowd control onto both Smexen and Gorecki, as well as Chun-Li now. Life Grip onto Gorecki, denies the Ring of Frost placed by Jamili. Well done from Smexen, denying that initial crowd control chain. Now Gorecki is getting aggressive in cat form, getting some extra damage onto Jamili, as it looks like the boys want to be attacking Jamili for the starting parts of this game.
Yeah, Jamili, Touch of Death is rolling for Chun-Li. Are they going to have significant burst damage? We'll have to see. Jamili looking to deny with the Dragon's Breath. Full kidney shot on Smexen. Smoke Bomb gets dropped out. And it looks like Rubcub is going to be able to save that Ice Block from Jamili. Jamili opting not to play the Temporal Shield, so a little bit more aggressive talents here in this particular matchup. You know, the boys, they have a lot of defensive cooldowns still at their disposal, and they're making a big push onto Jamili. If they can get Ice Block through the Avenging Crusader of Rubcub, it would be massive. Gorecki into a Hammer of Justice. Jamili looking to set up some crowd control. Blessing and Protection helps him, but Chun-Li with a beautiful Ring of Peace denies Jamili any follow-up crowd control. Jamili charges in looking for the Dragon's Breath. Ends up finding the Polymorph anyways. Smexen almost goes down without using his Dispersion. That was a good play by Jamili. He got denied with the Ring of Peace. Ended up just charging in, getting the Dragon's Breath sheep by himself, forcing out Dispersion, and now the boys are in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah, M2KC are fired up here in game number 1, looking to make Chun-Li eat his words. Big hit attack once again. Smexen's defense is starting to crack if Jamili can get further polymorphs out on Gorecki, but Chun-Li shuts him down. Now Smexen looks to counter-engage. Double Psychic Scream. Jamili is isolated and has to Ice Block. Perfect counter-engagement. They Mass Dispel off the Ice Block at low health. Aggressive plays by Smexen to try and close this game out almost right now. Big damage. Rubcub, are you going to trade out that Blessing of Sacrifice? He's just chilling with Light of the Martyr and Holy Light on 10% health. The bold move by Rubcub to not trade a powerful defensive to stay alive, but he manages to get away with it.
Yeah, manages to get away with it, and that's big for the team of M2KC. They still have some of their powerful defensives. Combustion gets used by Jamili. That's a full Hammer of Justice on Gorecki, but there's no follow-up. Jamili gets caught in the leg, so now Gorecki's completely free to keep Smexen alive, and the opportunity has kind of been lost. Smexen, Dispersion rolling up in 15 seconds, that major defensive cooldown. And that's one of the difficulties about training down a Shadow Priest, is these defensive cooldowns, they rotate up so quickly. Dispersion, one of the lowest defensive cooldowns in the entire game, but it's just so powerful. It's really difficult for M2KC. They have to overwhelm the boys, force out multiple cooldowns at once, and that's when they can try to get a kill.
I mean, even if they don't, Gorecki's so much lower on mana. Another crowd control attempt here from M2KC nets them that Dispersion very early on in the crowd control chain, so there's potential to even force more cooldowns from Smexen. Chun-Li stalls damage with that grapple weapon. We've been seeing a lot of grapple weapon throughout the tournament on the Windwalker monks to peel and also deny Death Strikes from other Death Knights. Of course, Death Strike not going to be a part of this game, but more oriented at survival. Smexen being taken down here potentially if he's not careful. Iron Bark available. Jamili in position to just crowd control Chun-Li out of line of sight. Gorecki moves in to dispel. That now allows Rubcub to charge across the battlefield and look for a Hammer of Justice. Rubcub has been getting Hammer of Justices pretty much on cooldown. I would say the boys need to look to stop Rubcub from crossing the map so easily. Roasties tried to sap it, but he got Ring of Peace right before he landed the sap and knocked him into a double Psychic Scream. That was beautiful from Chun-Li and Smexen, stopping the crowd control chain and also then turning it on its head. Jamili in trouble. Rubcub silenced, very low on health at this point. Cauterize is going to proc. Jamili's on the run. Rubcub's trying to stop the drink. He's trying to heal and stop the drink at the same time. Gorecki's actually just going to immediately open on Jamili. Then get back to Smexen and the Smoke Bomb to stabilize. Roasties is grapple weapon, unable to attack. Smexen looks like he's trying to pre-Mass Dispel some defensive cooldown, maybe a Blessing of Protection along those lines. Gorecki is repositioned. Rubcub knows if they land this, they need to land this next crowd control as soon as possible if they want to stay in the fight. Otherwise, there's a lot of defense available and they're falling behind on mana.
Yeah, Rubcub's mana not doing great. Paralysis coming in from Chun-Li. What is M2KC going to do in this matchup? Mew Mew Kitty Cats backs against the wall. They don't really have much offense. Ring of Peace denies the polymorph. Jamili with a nice shimmer manages to find it anyways. Ring of Frost gets dropped down. Chun-Li caught in crowd control. Beautiful job by Jamili getting the polymorph on Chun-Li. Ring of Frost on Gorecki setting up a 3v1 situation, but it gets turned on its head. Smexen with a nice double fear onto Roasty, onto Rubcub. Now Chun-Li getting aggressive onto Jamili. He's in trouble. Rubcub foresees the Divine Shield and the ultimate sacrifice to keep Jamili alive. In M2KC, they're running out of defensives and they're running out of time.
Yep, this game is now heavily in favor of the boys at this point in time. How much longer can Rubcub keep his team going for the push? Potentially, Smexen isn't going to be the target. I mean, there's so much more to work through. Maybe cut the string short, go after the Windwalker, try and do an all-in kill, or even go after Gorecki at this point.
Rubcub.
They're actually going to be going after Rubcub. trying to rush this game down to the finish. Grapple weapon on the Avenging Crusader. Not sure how much that actually affects the Avenging Crusader. It was an interesting attempt, but I don't think it really affects it at all. You can still use the Judgment, which is the most significant part of the healing from the Avenging Crusader. RubCub's going to survive that cheeky assault. Just shake it off. Gorecki activated Iron Bark before the crowd control engage. This was a nice move on his part. That way they can hold on to Dispersion for a bigger push deeper into Dampening. Smexen lands a double Psychic Scream. That's a good attempt to try and force cooldowns from Jamili. They get Blessing of Protection. Smexen's trying to dispel that off as soon as possible for Chun-Li, but Chun-Li is Polymorph, not really able to output too much damage. Mana is evening out. Smexen just going to trade Dispersion. It's a fair trade for the Vendetta and the Combustion, but it wasn't any crowd control, so there is an opening for M2KC if they can crowd control Gorecki soon. But Smexen can then just Void Shift. Jamili will then Ice Block. The defense is so close to call that it's really anyone's game still.
Jamili on the run, trying to get the crowd control he needs, but a nice life grip coming in from Smexen. That leap of faith, keeping Gorecki out of the Ring of Frost and allowing him to continue to heal. Smexen without the Dispersion a little bit vulnerable right now. We're at 11% Dampening. Gorecki's mana is not doing well. M2KC, they could just win this match on mana if RubCub could stabilize, but in the meantime, Gorecki's actually sitting down for a drink. This is massive. If Gorecki can drink, if he recovered mana in this situation, the boys are still in it, but he wasn't able to, and this could be a similar case to what we saw in the last game. In the late game, the Assassination Rogue and the Fire Mage, they just end up winning due to raw pressure.
All right, Smexen in trouble. He fades, but that's not going to last as long as Gorecki is crowd controlled, so we may see Void Shift. If they have to use they Void Shift the blind, but it doesn't break. Was it 1 second too fast? That's unfortunate there. The blind is now, although going to be sat through for Gorecki. Maybe they switch to him. He's low on health and no mana, running Feral Affinity. That could be an opening. Roasties isn't going to overextend for it. Instead, playing for the safe strategy. Keep tunneling down the Shadow Priest until he is dead, which is going to be the safest route, although it's going to be a long and hard-fought road for M2KC now as they're out of mana. Very low on cooldowns as well. Jamili's isolated, but he's polymorphing Chun-Li, which is stalling it long enough for RubCub to get out of crowd control. Ultimate Sacrifice. RubCub activates Avenging Crusade. It's going to be 3 DPS effectively for M2KC. RubCub charges across to get crowd control as well for the team. RubCub putting the team on his shoulders right now, making a push to bank the last Dispersion of the fight if they can get it. Smexen's doing everything he can to hold on to it, activating Fade, then looking to counter-engage with that Void Form, but activating Void Form while Avenging Crusader up is not going to be doing too much damage. RubCub is going to be able to heal through it quite easily. Gorecki dashing in quickly in Feral Affinity, adding whatever extra damage that he can. Smexen barely holding on. It's starting to look like a repeat where the caster just becomes overwhelmed from the pressure of the Fire Mage and the Assassination Rogue. The boys need to do something soon here, but they still need to get through an Ice Block. They still need to get through a Cloak of Shadows. At this point, there's basically 1 point of defense available for each team. Dispersion on Smexen, Ice Block for Jamili. Whoever forces it first is likely to win, and it looks like they're going to force Disperse first. Big kidney shot. There's no way you make it through this. He has to disperse, but potentially Jamili has to Ice Block at the same time. Gorecki races for it. And now there's basically no defense for either side. Jamili and Smexen are the highest points of vulnerability. That Feral Affinity of Gorecki is carrying so hard right now. Gorecki is hard carrying the damage and manages to close out the game for the boys.
Wow, really well.
So I would say that Gorecki was to all of the credit for the boys being able to find victory there. I think if M2KC just held out a little bit longer and Gorecki didn't add in that extra damage, that Smexen would have actually gone down. I think the compositions are evenly matched. Of course, Jamili should be min-maxing his talents a little bit more, especially at the highest level. But in terms of their execution of strategy, I think it was solid overall. Perhaps at some point they should switch to Chun-Li. RubCub, I'm wondering if he is running the Shadow Resistance Aura again here. It seems like they've built RubCub's talents to be more counteractive of the Windwalker, so running the double Blessing of Protection, but they're not actually attacking the Windwalker, so I don't see very much value other than being able to remove 2 Touch of Deaths in the game. I think just reducing the Shadow Priest damage overall would also be more efficient for RubCub and his team. You see M2KC going for a Smoke Bomb play on Smexen. They're trying to get Gorecki to run into the Smoke Bomb so he can be stunned, but regardless, they end up overlapping. Dispersion and Iron Bark and Fate. This is a big overlap. If Gorecki has to trinket this, it's basically all of their cooldowns. Yep. He has to trinket it. That's a very good start for M2KC.
Yeah, Smexen, I think he used the Fire Blood Racial as well, so they used 5 defensive cooldowns in that one exchange. Void Shift is available. Smexen has the trinket coming up in around 15 seconds, but after that, the boys, they don't really have too much left to work with. There's good offensive pressure now onto Jamili. He's trying to kite away, get out of line of sight of Smexen, getting some counter pressure rolling, but there's good pressure from Chun-Li and Smexen. Jamili could fall, or at least have to use some of his defensives. Blessing of Freedom allows him to kite away and get some distance. The RLPal looking to set up his team with a Hammer of Justice. Jamili gets in position. Ring of Peace denies, and I have to compliment Chun-Li in this matchup. He's been doing a really good job with his Ring of Peace. It's difficult to land the Spear Hand strike on a Polymorph coming in from a Mage, especially because he can pair that Polymorph with Shimmer to gain distance. The only ranged interrupt a Windwalker Monk really has is that Ring of Peace, and he's been doing a really good job to use that as just an extra interrupt onto Jamili to deny these setups coming in from M2KC, and I think it's really well played. Touch of Death push from Chun-Li, shut down by Jamili. Gorecki gets swapped to for just a moment. It looks like they're going to try and commit. They managed to pull Barkskin. Perhaps if they can stay on target, they can punish that Feral Affinity. Beautiful Ursul's Vortex, pulling RLPal back away from Gorecki. Roasty's snared up, goes for the sprint, gets disable rooted by Chun-Li. Has to be Blessing of Freedom, so now RLPal won't have that if he needs to use it on himself to get to Gorecki for a Hammer of Justice. So good min-maxing of snares on Roasties to prevent the reconnect. They pull a lot more mobility cooldowns from the team of M2KC than they otherwise would have. Gorecki's in stealth now, realizing that he's going to be the target likely with no Gladiator's Medallion and no Barkskin. So the best way for him to not be the target is to be invisible. You can't attack something that you can't see. So Gorecki goes in stealth and he's just going to be waiting. If they commit their attack to a different target, that target has cooldowns to survive. So that is a smart maneuver on Gorecki's part. He avoids that situation that could have been awkward or potentially his life simply by just doing nothing. Sometimes doing nothing is the best move. I mean, that certainly is the case. Blind on a Gorecki, he trickets out. Jamili getting bursted down, forced into the ice block. Master Spell coming in, but Roasty able to interrupt it. Nicely done by Roasty, backing up Jamili in that moment. That was a little bit scary for M2KC. If we look at mana, we'll have to see where Gorecki's at this point. RLPal's around 55%. Gorecki, is he behind? No, he's way ahead at this point, which is surprising to me. I'm not sure if he was able to escape for a drink. I didn't notice it, but that's big for the boys. All right, Gorecki caught in a Dragon's Breath. They're trying to attack him. He actually manages to re-stealth stun Roasties and try and escape from RLPal. A kidney shot into a Hammer of Justice is going to be scary, or vice versa, a Hammer of Justice into a kidney shot. So Gorecki's going to respect this attack and use Barkskin, but it wasn't Vendetta, wasn't Avenging Crusader, and now he doesn't have Barkskin, and now he doesn't have Gladiator's Medallion. M2KC seem a lot more focused on punishing this Feral Affinity of Gorecki, realizing that his ability to use it is too much of a threat, so by attacking him, they force him to run away. If he tries to go for an attack, then he risks his own life, so it's an interesting choice of strategy from M2KC. They're basically saying Gorecki is the biggest threat on the team. They want to remove that by attacking him, but so far now Gorecki is just bouncing laps around the map, and Smexen and Chun-Li will be able to ramp up a lot of damage. Gorecki gets into bear form with an Efflorescence Mushroom on the ground, so this is basically the most amount of healing he can do to himself, but it's Vendetta, Avenging Crusader, and multiple Gladiators Maledicts. I'm not sure if that will be enough on its own. Bashing up Roasties, double Psychic Scream from Smexen. Gorecki jumps across the map and survives an attack that otherwise would have taken him down. So I will say that Gorecki's awareness to know when to be aggressive and defensive and when he's the target has been 100% accuracy at this point. Yeah, definitely good judgment calls. Life Sweep on Jamili, Paralysis on RLPal, another setup coming in from the boys. They're looking to counter pressure. Dragon's Breath on Chun-Li, Jamili slows him down, and now nice control on Gorecki, on Chun-Li. Now it's Smexen who's on the back foot, forced into the dispersion, but that was the combustion. That was a very nice attempt there by M2KC. They get the cooldowns that they need, and now Smexen's actually a bit of a vulnerable target. Going after Gorecki didn't seem to be the best for M2KC. They really weren't able to get too much done. Gorecki was just prepared for all of their attacks, so I think switching it up, going back after Smexen is a smart move. Yeah, they definitely need to be a little bit more fluid in their targeting, just switching more often. That way they can get more mana from Gorecki. If they become predictable, then Gorecki spends less mana, and it's both basically impossible to get a kill if you're so predictable against a healer of Gorecki's caliber. They do get his Gladiator's Medallion on blind, but Smoke Bomb not available, no Vendetta for some time, so no opportunity right now for M2KC. They should probably just keep attacking the Shadow Priest as they are and try to run Gorecki out of mana and try and overwhelm the Shadow Priest in Dampening, but they still need to be aware of when Gorecki is getting a little bit flavorful with that Feral Affinity.
Gorecki's jumping in for the bash and a Gladiator's Maledict on Jamili, but Rubcub anticipated the crowd control and activated Blessing of Sacrifice prior to the engagement, redirecting the damage of that attack to himself rather than Jamili, who would have been vulnerable in that position. So good read by Rubcub, denying a kill. Chun-Li's trying to punish that cooldown usage by switching to the Paladin, which is a great strategy, as the redirected damage from the sacrifice adds to the damage that you do to the Paladin, putting Rubcub even further behind. They stun lock Rubcub on his Avenging Crusader, then they Psychic Scream him, removing that cooldown for a few seconds, but ultimately Rubcub looks like he will be able to connect. They stun Gorecki, but it has to be a Ring of Frost. He's in cat form, and because it's a Ring of Frost, Jamili fake casts it out to try and get it on the life grip, but he is silenced afterwards and unable to find it. Now Gorecki gets some uptime potentially for that Feral Affinity, stunning Jamili on the Polymorph so that he can heal Smexen through the Gladiator's Maledict, but Ironbark may not be enough, and Gorecki gets caught by the Polymorph as a result. I think in that exchange it may have been necessary to disperse rather than Ironbark. Gorecki couldn't handle the amount of damage at this point in Dampening. Gorecki is still crowd controlled. Smexen could fall. Big damage. He void shifts over to Gorecki, but now Gorecki could get swapped too. They see the opportunity. Jamili's lobbing up Pyros. They see Roasty's. He's going to get bopped aggressively and just close it out. Beautiful swap from M2KC. Nice adaptation towards the end of the game. New Kitty Cats get a win off of that, but now on Tolvaron Arena, a great map for Druids to be able to sneak around, drink, reset, and extend the game for a long period of time. It's likely that we see the boys be able to come back in the series, although I'm not 100% sold that this Shadow Priest Windwalker Druid is their best answer overall. Jamili greeting Smexen while he's sapped with a quick little wave. Sapping then Chun-Li and opening on Smexen. Gorecki is going to get combat. Rubcub is still mounted, so he's able to close the gap quickly. Gorecki anticipates the crowd control again and activates Ironbark before the attack. This is stabilizing Smexen throughout Jamili's combustion. Now long enough for its attack to have faded. So good read by Gorecki on that incoming stun, denying a lot of damage as a result.
Yeah, and it looks like the initial assault is going to be completely thwarted by Chun-Li. Nicely done with the paralysis onto Jamili, denying the follow-up polymorph out of that Hammer of Justice. And that's kind of the mini-game for Chun-Li in this particular matchup, is he has to shut down Jamili. When Rubcub pushes in, he lands the Hammer of Justice. It's up to Chun-Li with his paralysis, with his Ring of Peace, to deny polymorph, to deny Ring of Frost. And if he can do that, that's going to free Gorecki up and allow him enough time to actually land the heals he needs to keep Smexen alive. Jamili actually sneaks in a poly. Nicely done by Jamili. A little bit of a mistake there by Gorecki. Polymorph into Hammer of Justice. Nice Master Spell coming in from Smexen. Really good job. And that's important for Roasty and Jamili to interrupt. They have to coordinate their interrupt, the counterspell, as well as the kick to deny that Master Spell, because otherwise Smexen's going to have free reign on freeing up Gorecki from crowd control, and then there's just no chance they can actually take him down.
All right, Rubcub stunned, Roasty stunned. That's good usage of crowd control from the boys as they push for some cooldowns, but don't actually get anything as a result of that crowd control. Rubcub's going to cross midfield, look to lock down Gorecki, but I believe Gorecki snuck away out of range, so Rubcub's going to have to spend a little bit of extra time out in the open waiting for Gorecki. Rubcub wants to get that stun, but now he's silenced. Gorecki's going to use that time to cross the map and avoid the Paladin. This map is great for the Druid. Now jumping into the fight, forcing a Blessing of Sacrifice. Gorecki navigating Tolvaron quite effectively. Rubcub struggling to get to the target, uses Blessing of Freedom, but they get Psychic Screamed on it by Smexen, so he's going to lose that Freedom effect shortly. Chun-Li can start snaring him. Gorecki's trying to re-stealth around the pillar, stun Rubcub right when he runs in to stun him. Gorecki has wasted the better part of, I want to say, maybe 30 seconds of Rubcub's time by just avoiding him this long. Although he is falling behind on mana, having to expend so much healing from not healing for so long, running away from Rubcub. The boys should look to try and punish Rubcub at some point for how long he's overextended. I mean, he's just chasing Gorecki. But Gorecki, he almost looks like he's having fun running away from Rubcub. Re-stealthing, jumping in, stunning Jamili, running around the corner, re-stealthing, jumping in, stunning, and just repeating this over and over. Rubcub has burned a lot of cooldowns as a result of this style of play. Roasties is falling behind, has to trade evasion. Chun-Li switches targets. Now Jamili could be in trouble. Jamili's trying to catch Gorecki with some blink polymorphs, but he's not getting caught. Now repositioned, Rubcub moves in, finally getting the Hammer of Justice, but he pre-Ironbarks it and they Mass Dispel it, so that should be more than enough for Smexen to start getting aggressive. Gorecki jumps in again with the Feral Affinity, stunning Jamili, timing it with that Shadow Crash. A beautiful combination of talents there with the Rake stun from Feral Affinity and the Shadow Crash burst, putting Jamili behind.
Yeah, Jamili under fire. There's a nice Ursula's Vortex coming in from Gorecki, allowing Chun-Li some additional uptime. Jamili tried to use Shimmer to get out of it, but got sucked back in by that Ursula's Vortex, and Chun-Li got some uptime because of it. Roasty's going to be moving in. What are they going for? Blind play onto Gorecki. He trinkets out. as Combustion gets pulled out onto Smexen. That's an easy trade for Gorecki. His healing is powerful right now. He didn't even have to trade out the Iron Bark. Now finally a Hammer of Justice coming in from Rubcub. What are they going to be able to get out of it? Roasties actually goes for the Vanish Sap. Jamili's been denied so much on the crowd control. Roasties going to trade out that Vanish to secure some CC, and they do manage. They didn't really force out anything, actually. I thought they got the Dispersion, but they didn't. It was just the Vampiric Embrace that was enough. And M2KC, they committed a lot. That was Vanish. There was the Combustion, and the Blind, and all they got was Gorecki's Trinket.
Yep, big push there, not paying out for M2KC. We're still tied up between the boys and M2KC. Obviously, the boys want some vengeance after being defeated last week by M2KC. Now with this new composition, the Shadow Priest and the Windwalker, they're showing signs of life. Although a bit of a blunder in the last game. Had that mistake not been made, perhaps the boys would be up 2-0 in the series. They try to catch Gorecki on a swap with the Shadow Step, but Gorecki saw it coming and jumped into bear form, so he's reduced a lot of damage on himself. Jamili, though, with the double Ring of Frost, Smexen actually running into that. Maybe a bit of a mistake. It put him on diminishing return at least, but it happened to be at the same time Chun-Li was crowd controlled, so Gorecki is alone for quite a long period of time. They're just chasing him down. Roasties gets bashed away. Gorecki ducks around the corner. Smexen snipes the Shadow Crash, jumps into Void form, dishing out a ton of damage onto Jamili, whilst stunning Rubcub at the same moment, now fearing him. Beautiful engagement by Smexen. They left him open for a few seconds. Now he's really getting to shine with tons of pressure on Jamili. Rubcub dispels that Gladiator's Maledict instantly. Is there another one to follow up? I think if Chun-Li wanted to, he's in a poly unable to. Rubcub pops the Avenging Crusader. Rubcub and the team of M2KC want to get aggressive. Who are they going to attack? Is it Gorecki? I mean, it likely is. He's got no Gladiator's Medallion, no Bark Skin, but instead they go for Dragon's Breath, Ring of Frost. Smexen grips Gorecki away. He shape-shifts the Life Grip. Pre-mass Dispelcast by Smexen, snipes it instantly. Beautiful play from Smexen.
They need to be more coordinated, honestly. M2KC is letting way too many mass spells come in on that Hammer of Justice. It's the one thing that's sort of required against the Shadow Priest is you have to have either a kidney shot or a counterspell or a kick to deal with that. And if you don't, then the Hammer of Justice is essentially a waste if Smexen knows what he's doing, which it appears he does. So that's something that M2KC could definitely clean up a little bit. Or 6% dampening right now. Roasty's going for a play. Goes for the blind onto Gorecki. M2KC is looking to make an offensive push over onto Smexen. Combustion gets traded out. Chun-Li denies with the beautiful leg sweep. Jamili now getting some damage rolling, looking for a polymorph. Does manage to sneak it in. Nicely done by Jamili. And as a result, I believe Smexen's going to be forced into his dispersion. If they have any more follow-up crowd control, Gorecki doesn't have much catch-up mechanics at this point. There's no Iron Bark, but a huge heal tops him off. I guess I was wrong about that.
Jamili in a bit of trouble now as the boys look to counter-attack if they've got crowd control for Rubcub, but they used it on Jamili to stop crowd control. They're switching to Gorecki again. M2KC mixing it up, trying to keep the boys on their toes. Ring of Peace from Chun-Li. Roasties Shadow steps in to reconnect. Gorecki jumps likely to safety. Blessing of Freedom on Roasties. They really wanted to go for it, but they're not able to keep up. The Feral Affinity's movement speed bonus. Too much, too fast for them. Jamili still at half, Roasties as well. Rubcub's out of mana. Gorecki has way more. I mean, this is a big lead for the boys in terms of cooldowns. Unless they make a mistake, they need to move in and stop the drink. Gorecki's going to crowd control Rubcub while he was trying to regenerate mana. Roasties is very low on health and a stun. Rubcub gets stunned again by Gorecki. Feral Affinity paying dividends right now. That gets the Divine Shield, the Blessing of Sacrifice, big cooldowns. Rubcub could be a target now later on. Roasties as well is vulnerable. M2KC are falling apart. They're trying to get something going here on Smexen with the Smoke Bomb. Smexen gets out of it with his Gladiator's Medallion. Gorecki then uses Iron Bark to reduce damage. Chun-Li disarms Roasties to stop the attack. This usage of defense should be enough for Smexen to stabilize. They life grip the Polymorph, unfortunately not into a meteor of any area of effect damage, so Gorecki will be crowd controlled. Jamili blinks out of range of interrupt of Chun-Li, gets another Polymorph, goes for the third but gets denied. Does Rubcub have his stun? Doesn't look like it. Smexen's getting bursted. He's just dying to damage. This time though, didn't make the mistake of void shifting to the Druid. He void shifts to Chun-Li, so Chun-Li will be chilling. He's got Touch of Karma. Now Gorecki can play aggressive. He jumps in for the bash. Smexen gets polymorphed. M2KC realize they're just going to wait for these cooldowns, get control of the fight, polymorph Smexen a few more times, allow Roasties to reconnect. Rubcub's charging across, has Hammer of Justice. Curious as to why Jamili went for the Ring of Frost in that position, but ultimately, unless Gorecki shapeshifts the stun, it's not going to be consequential. Jamili goes for polymorph, gets paralysis. Chun-Li needs to stop these polymorphs at all costs. Roasties can't sap because he's grapple weapon. Chun-Li totally shuts down that crowd control attempt. Gorecki jumps in to try and engage crowd control for his team, looking like he wants to re-stealth. If he re-stealths, jumps in on Roasties, stuns him. I mean, it could be lights out for Roasties. There's no defense if Gorecki can manage to find that time, but he may not want to. I mean, Smexon doesn't have Dispersion. He is likely to be afraid of dying at this point. Mana is even. Grecky sneaks away. I think he's drinking. If he's drinking, they need to stop it. RubCub charges across. I'm wondering if they've given up on it. Grecky decides not to drink. He's going to be pouncing in over onto Jamili at very low health. Chun-Li connects a huge Rising Sun kick. RubCub goes for a stun, but Jamili is so low on health. Avenging Crusader is 13 seconds away. RubCub needs 11 more seconds. Jamili very low on health. Ice Block available, still has Cauterize. They should be able to make it, but Roasties maybe not with that much defense. Rake stunned, RubCub's paralysis, Avenging Crusader in 1, but Ice Block gets forced, so now it would be an overlap. Roasties is still low, Avenging Crusader needs to be enough. Judgment on Smexon, RubCub gets knocked on the Holy Light, goes for it again. It's still not even stabilizing at 27% dampening. As soon as that Avenging Crusader fades, Roasties is going to be in a lot of trouble, but in the meantime, while it's active, Smexon will be. He has to disperse, and this fight is constantly back and forth.
Yeah, very nice leap of faith there by Smexon, freeing Gorecki up from the Ring of Frost, but Jamili fake casted it. The one thing Jamili has been doing really well in this matchup is fake casting that Ring of Frost. Now there's an opportunity for him to actually try to land it here, but unfortunately gets denied. Smexon really nicely done with the silence. Big interrupt on Jamili. Jamili in a lot of trouble. Cauterize gets procced. He's on the run. Ultimate Sacrifice comes in from RubCub as well, but it's Smexon that could fall. Dragon's Breath onto Gorecki. He manages to get the Iron Bark. Does he have the healing to keep Smexon alive? Chun-Li trying to do what he can to slow down Jamili and keep up the pressure. Smexon stabilizes RubCub. He's got no tools left. You can't do anything to keep Jamili alive. They have to play a little bit of defense. Jamili getting lower. There's no Cauterize. Gorecki looking for a re-stealth. If he can find it, he might be able to get that Rake stun onto Jamili and take him down. Blind, defensively, going to be traded out by Roasties. Could commit the Vanish Sap as well, but doesn't look like he's going to be going for it. Vanish Cheap Shot onto Chun-Li. Garrote Silence on Smexon. Good peels coming in from Roasties. Now he doesn't have Vanish as a defensive cooldown, but he still has the evasion. Cloak of Shadow coming in around 40. And I think it's still going to be intelligent for the boys to just go after Jamili as much as possible, try to take him down. But M2KC, they're looking to make an offensive push onto Smexon.
This could easily be a cross kill at this point in the game with Dampening so high. 3 members of M2KC low, but Smexon barely holding on. They're trying to Shadow Crash, big combo. Jamili's going to fall first, but Smexon could follow suit. His Dispersion just became available. Chun-Li's off healing with Vivifies. Chun-Li's backup throughout this game was stellar. The boys now move to match point.
In the upper bracket.
Hook Point, a pretty aggressive map, so maybe we won't see any talent changes from M2KC. I still see the double Blessing of Protection, so unlikely that we see the Shadow Resistance aura. I do not see Temporal Shield, so M2KC are still running those talents. Although on Hook Point, since it is close-quartered combat, they could potentially win just off of aggression. Although moving forward onto a bigger map, I would like to see those talents change. Smexon tries to Master Spell. Gorecki's crowd control gets stopped on it. Now he's very low on health as a result. Interrupted on Shadow. Potentially going to game 5 early on. Gorecki pre-Iron Bark's blind, so he would like to be able to sit through this, as it has not been any aggressive cooldowns activated yet. Psychic Scream stops the sap. Beautifully done by Smexon.
Yep, Smexon manages to survive. There's a nice preemptive Iron Bark, and Gorecki actually made a talent choice. He switched up one of his talents. He's actually playing Renewal in this game, so perhaps expecting that they go after him. That's going to be a key defensive cooldown that he could survive with. Smexon using the Vampiric Embrace with the Fireblood in order to survive. It's been a good offensive push early on from M2KC. They're trying to keep the boys on the back foot. It's going to be really difficult on this map for Gorecki to ever escape and go for drinks, which we saw him able to recover a little bit of mana in earlier games on those larger maps. So I think this map choice could be pretty good here for M2KC, and they could keep up this very aggressive playstyle, which they're kind of known for. And they could take Gorecki down, or they could take the boys down by getting Gorecki out of mana as a possible win condition.
That's certainly a viable strategy for M2KC here, as we're on match point in the upper bracket, so the loser will not be eliminated from the competition entirely, but this new composition that the boys are breaking out against M2KC appears to be effective and could allow them to ride through to the top 4 for Sunday if they can just win this one game, or win the one after it if they don't find victory. Mana is surprisingly even. I was actually expecting M2KC to have a bit of a lead on Hook Point, but there is no lead there, which is not spelling good news for them. RubCub activating Avenging Crusader. Gorecki moves in to crowd control it, but they're going to need more than just a bash, so Smexon gets close and personal, securing a Psychic Scream, but there is no more crowd control. RubCub is going to have Hammer Time now, He's going to be dealing damage, and that damage will heal the team. Although he's trying to get Roasties back to target using that Blessing of Freedom on the Entangling Roots. Now moving over to stun Gorecki. RubCub engaging the assault for his team towards Smexen, looking to force a dispersion. Can they find it? Ring of Peace is denying the connect. They can't interrupt the Mass Dispel as a result. Good teamwork between Chun-Li and Smexen to move Roasties away from Smexen, so he couldn't stop Mass Dispel. Now Gorecki is able to freely Trinket Blind and save the team. Overall, the coordination of the boys is solid, and as a result, we see why they're able to find victory against the Rogue Mage Paladin.
Yeah, there's great pressure on Roasty and Jamili. Cyclone now secured over onto RubCub. Good aggressive plays coming in from the boys once again. Jamili trying to find a Ring of Frost, unable to find it, but I think it was mostly just a bait for an interrupt. Going for the polymorph on Chun-Li. Nice setup here by Jamili. That's exactly what he needs to do. Get the polymorph on Chun-Li as the Hammer of Justice hits, and that way there's no one that can really mess around and stop him from getting that Ring of Frost, and those are the consistent setups we need to see. I like the coordination there by M2KC. That was a good offensive push. We just need to see that basically rinsed and repeat throughout this game.
All right, let's see if they can rinse, repeat. Gorecki looks like he's trying to drink. Did MTUKC see it? Said doesn't look like it. They're actually being killed while Gorecki regenerates to full mana. That's not a good situation to be in. Gorecki keeping his team in the fight, realizing that mana is certainly going to be a deficit that he won't overcome later in the fight due to the map, so taking any opportunity to regenerate mana is going to be a game-winning play. RubCub silenced, Roasties stunned, but Roasties anticipated this attack and activated Feint before being stunned, so protected himself from RubCub having to use more significant cooldowns to survive that attack. Nice read by Roasties. RubCub's moving in. He wants to get a stun. Gorecki sees him. He's trying to dodge him, but these pillars are much smaller than Tolvaron, so RubCub can sneak up, stun Gorecki. Jamili blinks in to get a crowd control, but Gorecki's in cat form. It had to be a Ring of Frost, and it doesn't look like he's going to get it. Gorecki then repositions away from RubCub. Gorecki's main priority is stay as far away from RubCub as possible for as long as possible so that the Hammer of Justices are so difficult to get, because the Paladin doesn't do a lot of healing while he's moving. And then whenever RubCub comes close, stun RubCub and try and crowd control him back. Roasties with a nice Shadow Step kick intercepted that crowd control chain, and now RubCub is open to be in position for a stun, but Gorecki sneaks into stealth while RubCub was silenced. RubCub is actually pathing where Gorecki was in stealth, anticipating his movements, now securing a stun for Jamili. He has to Ring of Frost him through the pillar. Beautifully placed by Jamili. Now Chun-Li and a Poly. They need to stop Mass Dispel. Roasties stops it, but they drop the Poly on Chun-Li, so Chun-Li can grapple weapon Roasties. Regardless, huge damage on Smexen. He is going to trade Dispersion and survive, but now will not have Dispersion for Vendetta.
Scary moments here. Roasties, Jamili, RubCub, they got to get aggressive over onto Smexen. He's already traded out the Dispersion. There's no Trinket, but he does have the Void Shift. If they can keep him in a stun lock, he won't be able to get it off. Full stun, Smoke Bomb gets dropped out. Gorecki charging in. Hammer of Justice comes in from RubCub. Another nice attempt here from M2KC. They have to get something rolling. It appears that the boys, if they can stall out the game long enough, they end up just winning it with sheer pressure coming in from Chun-Li and Smexen, especially when Gorecki finds these windows of opportunity to get into cat form with the Feral Affinity and throw out that extra bit of damage. Mana still in favor of the boys in this particular matchup. Jamili tried to push in, going for a Dragon's Breath, but Gorecki, heads up play, was able to avoid it. Now Jamili really being punished for playing that aggressive. RubCub struggling to keep him alive, finds a Holy Light. Gorecki denies some healing with the Cyclone. Can Gorecki get a Cyclone on RubCub? Is he even going to try to go for it? Doesn't look like it. Smexen lands a nice Double Fear. Now Jamili, he's left all alone. Ring of Peace denies any casts. Nice crowd control coming in from the boys. This is a beautiful attempt. Like Sweep on Jamili. This could be the Ice Block or the ultimate sacrifice from RubCub, which is what they ultimately choose to go for. Now looking to reverse the pressure. An attempt here from M2KC. They find the crowd control on Gorecki. Smexen getting bursted down. Big damage coming in from Roasties. Void Shift's going to be traded out onto Chun-Li once again, and this is a scary moment for Chun-Li. What is he going to do? Blessing of Protection gets traded out. Chun-Li now a little bit vulnerable, but I think he managed to escape.
All right, beautiful kiting by Chun-Li. RubCub tried to do an all-in with the Blessing of Protection there to remove the defense, but now it's not there for Touch of Death. This likely is an ice block. Jamili has to respect the cooldowns. Immediate punish by Chun-Li. Beautiful counter engagement. Ring of Peace interrupting the crowd control of Jamili. Chun-Li just on point, showing confidence in his words earlier before the series, saying that he would only play one series today. He's looking to make sure that he is not a liar, and he's doing that justice here in game number 4 on match point with Dampening at 13% and RubCub's mana so low. Grecky decides to trinket blind. I think that's a fair trade, although he needs to be ready to be the target. But he's already ready to be the target, having talented into Renewal before the game started instead of Wild Charge. The map is too small to really benefit from Wild Charge, so Renewal is just a better pick. So if they switch to him, that's an immediate 30% heal that he can get. So in this position where he has no Gladiator's Medallion and Vendetta is up, I think they would like to switch to Gorecki and then pop Vendetta, and then when he gets out of the stun, he can use Renewal. So I like that adaptation in terms of talents. Gorecki's definitely thinking 2 steps ahead.
Yeah, this is nicely done by the boys. RubCub had to trade out his Divine Shield in order to save Jamili during that exchange. And now M2KC, they don't have much left to work with. There's a Vendetta. Rosties needs to try to set up his team, but Jamili could easily just fall. Crowd control with a silence over on the RubCub. That's going to fade. Paralysis comes in from Chun-Li. Jamili getting low. He still has the Cauterize, that cheat death effect, but if they can get a Gladiator's Maledict before that lands, they can completely negate that effect and just take down Jamili instantaneously. Ring of Frost tries to get cast out by Jamili, but unfortunately it misses on Gorecki, and as a result, Smexon does end up surviving. That could have been a crowd control chain that just won them the game. A little bit of a mistake there for M2KC, or just a little bit unlucky. And as a result, the boys, they might be able to survive, but Jamili, he actually sneaks in a Polymorph. Very nicely done. And Smexon's still in trouble. He's using Vampiric Embrace to heal himself up, top off his team. Gorecki gets out of the crowd control. Smoke Bomb gets dropped out now by Roasty. This is a great attempt by M2KC. They could just win the game. Hammer of Justice comes in from RubCub. This is going to be Combustion from Jamili as well. A big offensive push. If the boys can survive this, it's going to be huge. I think they have what it takes to take down Jamili after this offensive push, but they just have to hold on a little longer.
And the boys hold on. Both teams totally out of mana. It's match point for M2KC. They have to win if they want to stay in the upper bracket. Jamili's moving in for the game-winning crowd control, but gets denied. Smexon is still being pressured by Roasties. Roasties trying to close the game. Chun-Li trying to hold out with some extra Vivifies. Gorecki, he cannot afford to be Ring of Frost. They stop it with the stun. They go for a blind instead. Gorecki trinkets it, although it was a half diminishing return. I think that he still needed to. Jamili's under fire, though there's no cooldowns for RubCub. It's match point. Jamili's pinned down. Cauterize triggered. He's on the run, trying to get back to RubCub in line of sight, but there's no mana to heal him back up with. He's going to polymorph Chun-Li in desperation. But there's still Greater Fade, there's still Ironbark, there's still so much defense. Smexon knows the game's in the bag. He's going to trinket out to just finish it. Roasties is stalling for as long as he can, but the Windwalker's cooldowns are activated. Shadow Crash is sniped out. Fists of Fury flying in from the images, and Roasties actually kills Jamili with images. Or sorry, Chun-Li kills Jamili with images.
Matchup in the past. I want to see what strategy is Method Orange going to use. Are they going to sit back, maybe conserve a little bit of their mana? Are they going to go out and just play all out aggressive? And they seem to be going over onto Chanimal here. Trill activating that Metamorphosis, looking like they want to get some pressure going, man.
Yeah, roll the damage on Chanimal, try to get Cubsy out of mana. The one thing Cloud9 is really good at is Wealthy Man backing up Cubsy, Cubsy escaping, going for consistent drinks in the matchup. And I think if they can get that done, they can secure a lead. When we saw this matchup play out yesterday, I believe it was Jabingos playing up against Diabolus. Jabingos, what they ended up doing is they put the Demon Hunter on the Druid, got him out of mana. In the meantime, the Death Knight sat on the Warlock, denied a lot of that incoming damage, and then eventually later on in Dampening, the Shaman could just throw out a lot of purges because of how mana efficient they are. They have a lot of gas left in the tank at that stage in the game, and that's something Method Orange definitely could implement.
Yeah, the name of the game is going to be shut down Cubsy from drinking, and once again Trill is playing that rain from above. He's been doing such an excellent job in these tournaments, kind of rotating his I-Beam, his Metamorphosis, and that rain from above to maximize his damage. Trill being a top raider in the PvE scene, being able to shut so much damage, and Chanimal right now taking the brunt of it, activating his Spell Reflect right there, getting a couple of fears that onto Maz. The Immolates are coming out to get that flashpoint trait to increase his haste further on. And right now, Trill has actually been using a couple of mana rifts onto Chanimal for even more damage. They might not even be going for the mana rift strategy here, just using the mana rift onto Chanimal for damage instead of trying to run Cubsy out of mana. Another beautiful grip asphyxiate here as we see Cedar take a whole bunch of damage, man.
Yeah, Cedar's going to be taking a little bit of a damage. This is a nice attempt coming in from Chanimal and Wealthy Man. That's the Icy Veins. So big offense going to be committed. And this is a really interesting adaptation coming in from Method Orange. They're not going for the mana rifts. They're just going to train down Chanimal in this game. Cedar's actually playing some really interesting talents. He's playing the Cleansing Water. So I believe he can just drop a Healing Rain on the ground and has a 20% chance to dispel him. So later on in the game, I mean, the main win condition of Cloud9 is getting long, extended crowd control chains onto Sea-Doo. If during that late game period, he's just dispelling himself from Healing Rain, he has a lot of leftover mana, I feel like that is definitely an interesting adaptation for Method Orange and could bank them a win in this one.
Yeah, and there, once again, another mana rift towards Chanimal, but Chanimal actually decides to just sidestep that one and not going to be able to hit him. And Trill, you know, rotating his I-Beam, rotating his Metamorphosis, rotating that Rain from above. And the reason why is because of that Spell Lance that he's throwing out. He's doing percentage-based damage, doing 8% damage per tick. And Warlocks, they have so much health. So it ends up being very, very effective damage here against these Warlock teams. And this strategy for Method Orange so far seems to be pretty good for them. However, that Healing Rain is going to start costing a lot of mana later on in the game, and Cubsy, when they play like this, is able to just go for drinks however he wants. You can see Cubsy right now in the back, throwing out the Regroughs, throwing out a couple of Solar Wraths as well, gets gripped up. Beautiful bear form there from Cubsy as well. He's going to make sure that he doesn't get cleaved too much in that swap, and now we see more mana rift potentially coming onto Chanimal.
Yeah, they're not using it at all on Cubsy. It's just straight up damage on Chanimal. Keep in mind, it's going to do damage to his hit points as well as his mana, which means Chanimal has to use Life Tap more often, which is more damage. So Method Orange just going for pure damage on Chanimal. Both Trill and Mez focusing on max DPS. Sea-Doo, his mana's doing quite well, but it's going to be difficult for him to drink in this matchup. He has to be a little bit careful. He's throwing out the Healing Rains now, but those start adding up over time, and right now we do see Cubsy developing a mana lead.
Yeah, Sea-Doo's already down to about 60% mana so far. He's going to have to be very, very careful. And you can see that little Fell Hunter, that little Fell Puppy, is actually on top of Sea-Doo here. So that's why he's not going to be able to drink at all this game. They don't really have the same, you know, mobility as the Druid in terms of just running away from it and stealthing, dropping that pet aggro. And now we see another Fell Eruption combined with the Mana Rift, doing percentage-based damage onto Chanimal. I'm not sure if this strategy is actually going to work out for them, because Sea-Doo is running quite low on mana before Dampening has even set in so far.
Yeah, and one thing I said earlier, I actually misspoke. Chanimal does not have Life Tap. Warlocks don't have that ability anymore, so these consistent mana rifts actually limit Chanimal's ability to get fears. And that's something Chanimal does a very good job of, landing consistent fears. If you're getting mana rifted, he's not going to have that same type of mana to get out that crowd control that the Mage Lock Druid really needs. And I really like this coming in from Method Orange. It's an interesting strategy. Sea-Doo sitting down for a drink. Frozen Orb gets dropped down by a Wealthy Man. That's going to be looking to deny, but I'm curious to see how this game develops as we march forward into Dampening.
Well, another thing as well is that the Frost Mage really annoys these melees with all the Polymorph spam, all the Fear spam, you know, in general. So the Healing Rain is quite effective in the sense that it just frees the melees. Every time the Healing Rain crits, every time it ticks and the tick crits, the target gets dispelled. But now Sea-Doo caught up in a counter spell, followed up by a Sheep, but I believe he got himself out there with that Healing Rain last tick there. Potentially poor timing there from Wealthy Man. We see Sea-Doo actually stopping Cubsy here on that drink, but Cubsy regenerating way too much mana. But Chanimal now in trouble, has to activate his Unending Resolve, trying to counter pressure Mez here, Van.
Yeah, good pressure onto Mez, but unfortunately not going to be able to do too much. And Unending Resolve is a really long cooldown. That's a big victory for Method Orange. Sea-Doo playing a little bit more passive with the Healing Rain, and I think it's intelligent. He doesn't really need it at this point in the game. Later on, it's going to be super effective as, like I kind of mentioned, the main win condition is going to be Cloud9 getting extended crowd control chains onto Sea-Doo, and they could eventually take him down. But Chanimal's been really struggling, and this is honestly some next level stall tactics coming in from Method Orange, just getting the Warlock out of mana with the consistent mana rifts, and it feels really difficult for Cloud9 to get anything going.
Yeah, it just seems like they can't get that same, you know, momentum because the melees are having so much uptime onto Chanimal. Now Chanimal gonna gate back to his side of the map. Cubsy looking for a drink, and honestly, normally we would see the Demon Hunter and the Rest Shaman just all over Cubsy here, but they really don't even care. They're just on top of Chanimal, trying to maximize that damage as much as possible. Now we see DK cooldowns coming out. There's a big Frost Nova, but as soon as that Healing Rain starts ticking, all of those pets are gonna get freed up with that this spell now. Wealthy Man here activating his Frozen Orb, combining it with the Blizzard. You can already see Wealthy Man's Frozen Orb as it's down on the ground, already down to 20 seconds CD. You can see it's ticking out. It's almost ready to be used once again here. Frost Mage very, very effective in this matchup when you're just free casting the way Wealthy Man is. And Wealthy Man is actually not opted in for that Freezing Rain talent. There's a lot of rains here, Healing Rain, Freezing Rain, but basically what the Freezing Rain is an instant cast Blizzard. Every time you Frozen Orb, you can see that he has Comet Storm, which is the talent that you would trade for that. Now another double Mortal Coil here from Chanimal. Mez is starting to take a little bit of damage here. What are you going to do, Sidu?
Yeah, what is Sidu going to do? He has to keep Mez alive during this situation. Frozen Orb gets dropped down, but Chanimal this isn't the same Chanimal. He can't get out the fierce that he's known for. He just doesn't have the mana to do so. Mez and Trill just negating basically everything Chanimal can do. Wealthy Man trying to set something up. That was his Icy Veins. He got the Polymorph on Sidu. He got some damage rolling on Mez, but it just wasn't enough. Chanimal was not able to get out the Chaos Bolts. They just have so many different interrupts. They have Mind Freeze. They have the interrupt from Trill. They have Wind Shear. They have Grounding Totem. Chanimal out of mana. He isn't able to set up the damage normally we see with the fears, and unfortunately for Cloud9, this is looking like it's going in Method Orange favor. There's a big attempt here from Cloud9. Sidu forced to trade out the Spirit Link Totem and the Ascendance, so a bit of an overlap there coming in from Method Orange, and maybe Cloud9 can start developing some momentum.
Yeah, and now we're starting to see that point in the game where the Resto Shaman...
Whoa! All right, Chanimal, he gates away, lands a Chaos Bolt. Good
to see. I expect them to play the same strategy and then not make the blunder right as they did at 21% dampening, just to make sure that this strategy doesn't work. But if it does work, then of course they're likely to keep using it.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of in disagreement to what we decided in between the games. I think if Method Orange play the game out really cleanly, you know, Mez trades cooldowns where he should, etc., then this is a winning strategy potentially. I don't like the idea of going after Wealthy Man, because I think if you overly spam your healing rain, firstly, you're going to be susceptible to more interrupts, and secondly, you're going to expend much more mana to actually chase after the Mage. As we said, the Warlock is kind of a sitting duck here. If they manage to get those mana rifts going early, by dampening, he should be completely out of mana. They deny all the fears. They just have to watch out for polymorphs, essentially, which aren't even that much of a threat because of those blizzards. And then Chanimal should die eventually.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a viable strategy. I am curious if Trill is going to use mana rifts on the Warlock or use them on Cubsy on Hook Point, because it's such a small map. I do believe that they could run Cubsy out of mana, using them on the Druid instead. Trill looks like he's got his sights set on Cubsy. He wants to dash across the map, but gets Frost Nova'd by Wealthy Man, unable to get in line of sight. And this is what I love about Cloud9, is that they protect Cubsy. They're not just aimlessly spamming crowd control onto the Death Knight and the Demon Hunter. They time it exactly when they want to cross the map to Cubsy, and this way they're absolutely min-maxing the amount of time that Trill and Mez are not spending playing their characters effectively, and this way they're not nailing mana rifts, they're not building momentum, and Cubsy doesn't even really need to heal. This is why Cloud9 can overcome this matchup, as opposed to what we saw with Diabolus versus DHDK Nation. Is when we watch Diabolus play their Mage Warlock, they're just spamming Fear, spamming Polymorph the entire game, not really with a plan in terms of when they're going to be doing it. Damage is pretty high right now from Method Orange, though. Cubsy forced to use Iron Bark on Chanimal. They are using the mana rifts on Chanimal. Chanimal's getting a Demonic Gateway box to box, so if he needs to escape to Cubsy's side, he now has that as an escape tool. Frozen Orb going to be placed down. Sidu responds, dropping that Earthen Wall Totem. Curious to see if he casts a Healing Rain to remove all these Frost Novas. Might not be the most effective while Frozen Orb is active, as it's likely just to reapply slow instantaneously. Sidu is playing a lot more slow in terms of the Healing Rain. I'm even wondering if he's running the talent. I believe he is, because he casted it earlier on. He must still be running it. I think on this map, Sidu's main strategy should be maintaining his mana and then going for a Purge attack like we saw Burley do. That was the most convincing way that I've seen this Demon Hunter Death Knight Shaman composition work. Of course, the Healing Rain dispels can be good for building momentum, maybe catch a surprise kill, but the main win condition to me for Method Orange is get Sidu into deep dampening with mana, spam Purge, and then kill the Warlock with that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in principle, and we'll have to see if they do end up doing that. Obviously, one of the big notable differences here for Cloud9 is that since Cubsy isn't the receiver of all these mana rifts, his mana's totally fine. So a Purge all-in from Sidu wouldn't necessarily have the same success rate early until Cubsy actually does run out of mana. And my hope is that after Chanimal's gets oomed here, that they'll wait until Cubsy drops low on mana himself, just through spam healing Chanimal when he is that sitting duck. and then that's going to be the situation where potentially Sea-Doo could go for an all-in play. But ultimately, I think the strategy here for Method Orange is pretty smart. Chanimals, it's going to be interesting to see how he plays it in late Dampening, because obviously right now he's kind of sitting near the pillar, helping Wealthy Man get his AoE damage off, which I think is smart, you know, just keep some passive pressure up, maybe set up an opportunity to win randomly as they did in game 1. But after that, I think Chanimal can actually use his mobility to kite away a little bit, you know. We've got an Infernal push here. He could potentially gate away, force Trill and Mez to connect back over to him, as they want to do to continue these mana rifts, and that could be an opportunity for them to really kind of tee off on the members of Method Orange.
I think the main problem is the compositions that both teams are running. One brings a lot of crowd control and durability. The other one just brings a lot of durability. So it is difficult for either team to develop a significant amount of momentum until deep dampening. So in these preliminary stages, the teams are just trying to set up their best case scenarios for dampening. Method Orange feel the best case scenario is to run the Warlock out of mana so they can remove the crowd control fear from the fight. In the past, they have used Mana Rift on Cubsy to try to have the healer out of mana deep into dampening so he can't heal, but Cubsy somehow always gets away and drinks to full mana. So instead of going after the Druid, they're going after the Warlock with those mana rifts, and eventually could overwhelm the team and just run Cubsy out of mana purely based off of pressure. You can see that Cubsy has so much free time that he's just casting Solar Wrath, although it is good for him to maximize his global cooldown usage. Even just adding in a tiny bit of damage might be enough to sneak a cooldown that otherwise Cloud9 wouldn't get.
Yeah, and I think for what it's worth, Cubsy's one of the best healers at doing that. That's one of the reasons that we commend him as potentially the best Resto Druid in the world right now. Playing fantastically, both defensively for his team, but also kind of leading the charge with some of this offensive gameplay, whether it be the Feral Affinity or just those simple rafts when you have downtime. You can see Chanimals, the work is almost complete on him from Method Orange. He's almost completely tapped on mana. Every single fear costs 5% of the base mana from Chanimals, so you can imagine that once that blue bar is low, that fear spam will essentially just cease to exist. This should be the final burn here coming in from Trill in this situation. Now the job really starts for Method Orange, though. They need to be careful. Next Infernal's up in about 1 minute, so they'll need to make sure they play around that cooldown this time. Mez can't afford to throw a second game in a row here for Method Orange. Cloud9, of course. For Cubsy, it's just about healing efficiently. I'm really curious how he's going to keep up, though, as Dampening starts to sack, whether it will be Zico's scenario that the Shaman just falls behind, can't keep up with the Druid with full mana, or whether Method Orange will just exploit that sitting duck of Chanimal.
Healing Rain placed here to try and get that Abomination, some max uptime onto Chanimal, and also Trill as well as Mez to dish out some pain. They get Ironbark and then they immediately retreat away, realizing they're not going to be able to dent through Ironbark's defense. Dampening has kicked in. Chanimal's mana is actually doing pretty well. I feel like he was out of mana at this point in the game previous, so I think the mana rifts definitely should be a little bit more on point here from Trill onto Chanimal. Mez isolated again. Let's see how he deals with the situation. All of his teammates are in crowd control. The Solar Wraths are adding in a bit of extra damage, putting the pressure on. Sea-Doo's out of crowd control. They switch to Sea-Doo out in midfield, trying to blast him down. He's going to duck for cover around the pillar. And of course on Hook Point, the small map, Method Orange have this advantage of being able to retreat to safety, but if Cloud9 loses here and goes to the bigger maps, then they're not going to have this. So because Cloud9 won the blind pick, this could easily swing back and forth to a Game 5 where Cloud9 pick the larger maps and win off of strategy. So Method Orange may have to break out a different composition. I think they have to if this strategy doesn't work on their best map. That's almost guaranteed. Now at 12% dampening, Sea-Doo's mana is in a good position for purges. And that, I want to see the purge all-in attempt, similar to what we saw from Burley's team in Europe with the DHDK Nation. That's the only win condition. I don't think you can win if you don't purge, but it's a matter of picking when you go for the purges and then also how you use your defensive cooldowns. Because in this position, it looks like they may have to use defensive cooldowns just to survive, whereas I actually think you use defensive cooldowns to stand on top of the Warlock. So while you're dying, you press Darkness to keep attacking the Warlock and not take damage. And then you press Anti-Magic Zone to not take damage. And then you press Spirit Link to save yourself, and you kill the Warlock because he has less cooldowns than you deep in Dampening. It's just a matter of what percent do you make that play, because if you pick the wrong percent, if it's too early, then you're going to use the cooldowns and then die. And if it's too late, then you may just die without using the cooldowns. And so that's what Method Orange have to calculate. At what point do they make their big push?
Well, they actually started throwing through the mana rifts over onto Cubsy already. Trill went for that play a couple of times. The Innovate came out, so Cubsy was able to restore a bit of mana, but they have stopped doing it over onto Chanimal. That's why his mana is fully recovered, essentially. The mana regeneration for the Warlock, essentially putting that to full already. So all of that hard work that we saw in the early game from Method Orange to Chanimal is now essentially mute as we see those mana rifts coming out over onto Cubsy. Doesn't have the Innovate available. It's curious to see whether that stall tactic was just to get them to a threshold of dampening, or whether it would have been better to just keep Chanimal out of mana the entire game. Cubsy now feeling a bit of the pressure. That was the Infernal push from Chanimal. The next one's up in about 1 minute here, and Sidu's mana is starting to wane, so this is certainly looking better and better for Cloud9. You know, all those disadvantages we talked about have essentially been reduced here. Trill's going to start doing his job of mana burning Cubsy, but with good crowd control once again from Wealthy Man, unable to find it. Cubsy's mana sitting pretty higher than Sidu's, in fact, right now, as we're at 25% dampening.
That is not good. You need to have more mana to be able to purge deep into dampening. Otherwise, Mez, I think, is just going to be torn to pieces by Cloud9 in Game 2, which means they'll put Method Orange on match point and almost certainly guarantee the series, unless Method Orange have a different composition or if they decide to go for that purge strategy. But in this game, I don't know if they have enough mana to do it. And if they have to use those defensive cooldowns like Spirit Link Totem, Anti-Magic Zone, or Darkness, the big team cooldowns that are guaranteed to keep you alive, if they have to use those just to stay alive and not to push, I don't think that they have enough battery power to push through to kill. Decent damage on the Cubsy, a bit random there from Trill. He was using the rain from above and actually just tossing Fell Lances at Cubsy in the back line. Maybe there is opportunity to kill the Druid, especially on hook point. Cubsy, is he going to get stopped? Trill's in a poly to dispel him. He goes for I-Beam. He gets counterspelled instantly. How much mana did Cubsy get?
A couple of ticks.
I think
not
just
bad.
A couple. It's better than nothing, most certainly. Cloud9 are in a solid position unless Method Orange make their decision to push. But if they push right now, then Infernals will get called in. That's why they need to be able to answer that with cooldowns. Infernals are in. Mez grips Chanimal out of the area of effect to try and pull him out of line instead of Cubsy, but didn't really get him too far. Dark Soul activates. There's the anti-magic zone so they can keep attacking the Warlock. Now likely we see Darkness, and maybe they go for a Purge all in, but Sidu only has enough mana for maybe 2 or 3 Purges. They still have Unending Resolve to go through. They didn't mana rift Chanimal, so he's actually getting fears that are taking Sidu out of the game. So Method Orange, now they're dropping the other part of their strategy, although Cubsy is out of mana, so maybe they can win off of that. It's so difficult to call when basically everything is decided in a 10-second window of time deep into dampening. It's very difficult to predict. I would say at this point that Cloud9 are in a solid position, unless Trill lands some mana rifts here and dispels off this Innervate. They actually did dispel off the Innervate. Spirit Link Totem has to be used. Sidu's falling behind. This is where the Shaman becomes a liability because you can't heal with only Riptide at this point in Dampening. You have to cast very slow heals like Healing Wave, and that's easily interrupted. There's 2 interrupts on the team of Cloud9 that are only going at Sidu, so if he gets interrupted one time, he's probably going to lose the game. He doesn't have mana to purge. They're already down half their cooldowns. Cloud9's at full health. Cubsy can just run and drink, and then if they try and stop him, they're going to die. I mean, this is it. It's checkmate. Cloud9 have them in checkmate.
Yeah, I mean, this is your Sid's magical 40% Death Knight delete button win condition here for Cloud9 if they can take down Mez. One of the things that I did notice that Mez actually, instead of going for the denial on the drinks using Epidemic, the dot from the disease, he's actually using his micromanagement of his pet, putting his pet over onto Cubsy. But of course, if Cubsy gets away from that pet one time, you know, one root, one Ursul's Vortex, as you can see right now, the pet is rooted, he'll just be out of drink. He's been doing a good job of that. As the pressure mounts higher and higher on Method Orange, they're less and less able to deny those drinks. They really need to just get damage going onto Chanimal. They need to rely on Trill with those death from above, the percentage-based damage that Cubsy surely soonly won't be able to heal through much longer. Doesn't have access to that Innovate, but meanwhile, Mez obviously taking a lot of damage. Still mana rifts coming out onto Chanimal at this point, presumably just for the damage. There's no way they're ooming him again. At 44% dampening, this game will end very soon, Sid.
Yeah, Mez in a lot of trouble. He has his own cooldowns. Chanimal actually goes for Unending Resolve to try and answer the Gladiator's Maledict push here. Mez is not trading out the Anti-Magic Zone. He wants to line it up with a cooldown, but the longer he waits, the lower he goes. Any magic shield denies the Gladiator's Maledict at least, so Mez gets some value out of this cooldown. Trill is feared away. Cubsy, what are you going to do? Are you going to try and go for a drink, potentially risk Chanimal's life? There's actually no defense for Chanimal, but Sidu gets counterspelled into a full polymorph. Reverse magic from Trill. Any magic zone is stalling damage for now. Wealthy Man still just casting polys, waiting for any magic zone to fade before they push for the kill onto Mez. Icebound Fortitude's all he's got left. Trill flies up into the air, but he can't use darkness while he's in the air. And Mez was left on the ground. He uses Icebound Fortitude, but that might not be enough at 49% dampening. Trill is feared far away. Darkness may not be a choice if Trill doesn't get back to the team. They're confident to not have to use it. Mez is isolated again with Sea-Doo in a polymorph. They grip Chanimal over, but Trill is far away. He jumps over with Metamorphosis. This has to be the darkness. There's no other way. It's too late, or he got unlucky there. Unfortunate for Method Orange, but Cloud9 now put them on match point.
Game, but they were unable to find it, and things just spiral out of control so quickly at that deep of dampening. With the Restoration Shaman, with the limited healing on the Death Knight, once you hit that 40-50% dampening, there's basically a point of no return where if Chanimal ever gets away, it's basically impossible to recover.
It's one of those things, right? Like this series, let's be honest, guys, it hasn't been the quickest paced games. Cloud9's playing for a late game win condition, Method Orange playing for a late game win condition. We could talk about sweet spots the entire day, but ultimately Cloud9 has always been the team that's come out on top. Now Method Orange has a little bit of pressure on them in this game potentially, because they have a way of winning the game. We'll carefully watch the blink cooldowns on Wealthy Man, watch how much he's able to kite away. But Trill on the Windwalker is an exposed target. Mez on Frost Death Knight is a much more exposed target too. Both these guys can die much easier than the Demon Hunter Death Knight we saw last game, so they are under some pressure to actually generate kills in this game, which is something that Method Orange honestly haven't been too much when they've been running this DHDK as their main composition.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. You know, Restoration Shamans or Restoration Druids right now, they do a lot of healing, and when you don't have that Mortal Wounds effects, it's essentially impossible to take someone down, especially a really good Restoration Druid healing a target like a Destruction Warlock. You really need the Druid to be out of mana, you need purges, and you need Mortal Wounds if you want to end up securing a kill. I think the Windwalker Monk's going to be a little bit better, but so far Method Orange just hasn't been the greatest start for them. Wealthy Man has been positioned very far away. Chanimal has had great backup as well as Cubsy, and they basically have Method Orange completely pinned down at the pillar. Mez is able to recover, but the one thing about this strategy, the Delirium and the Heartstop, is Mez has to actually maintain uptime on Wealthy Man. If he can never get there, like we're seeing right now, he's just feared away, he's rooted, he's rake stunned, Cubsy's now getting aggressive, then all of a sudden you don't really get that main benefit as Wealthy Man isn't struggling to get away, he's not tanking a lot of that damage. This is when Method Orange, they have to make a push, they have to commit to staying on top of Wealthy Man and trying to start generate some pressure.
Yeah, I think this is a case of, you know, they have tried this strategy in the past. I think it was actually last year when they played the Frost Death Knight a little bit into Rogue Mage, because Rogue Mage was incredibly prominent. But think about the comparisons between Rogue Mage and a Warlock in the MLD. You know, the Warlock provides double coil, he provides a fear, he provides a gateway, and Cubsy also has tools such as the Ursul's Vortex. All of these things will make it harder for Method Orange to get the uptime on Wealthy Man before they even start thinking about those shimmers, the blinks from the Frost Mage. So there's so many tools that Cloud9 have to nullify this strategy. It's going to be incredibly difficult for Mez and Trill to get that uptime. That said, they do have a little bit right now. Chanimal's therefore spamming out a few fears, trying to help his Mage get a little bit away, because once he is, of course, those clones will start regenerating much faster as long as he's far away from Mez.
Yeah, and we look at mana. This small map is going to help Method Orange. It's going to be much easier for them to actually shut down any sort of drinks from Cubsy. As long as Sea-Doo's on point, watching that, they will maintain a mana lead in this matchup. Wealthy Man has actually been taking a significant amount of damage at this point. Big damage coming in from Trill. Chanimal trying to counter pressure the best he can with big Chaos Bolts onto Trill. Sea-Doo has to keep him topped off. Method Orange need to maintain their pressure. They have to stay aggressive in this match. They can't really give Cloud9 an inch to sort of recover, but at this point, Cubsy, he's been sitting down, he's been out of combat, he's in cat form. I think he's going to be able to basically completely restore his mana. Unless Trill was able to shut him down, we'll see. No, Cubsy full mana at this point, and this is a great position for Cloud9 to be in. Yeah, and on top of that, Wealthy Man actually snuck a sheep over onto Sea-Doo. Really impressive considering the amount of pressure he's been put under by the entirety of Method Orange. I have to say, to Mez's credit, he's done an excellent job keeping uptime on Wealthy Man. He'll
he'll be able to grip this Shimmer. Is there another Shimmer available? It doesn't look like it just yet. Double Shadow Fury, a lot of slows coming in, but ultimately Death Knights also have a fair few slows that Wealthy Man's going to have to contend with. His pet's even being interrupted. This looks like an absolutely horrible experience for Wealthy Man, if I'm quite honest. Probably not the most fun. Chanimals, though, will be having a lot of fun. He pops the Infernals looking for some big Chaos Bolts.
Yeah, if you want to have any two players back you up as a mage, it's going to be Chanimal and Cubsy you want by your side. So although Wealthy Man's been severely limited in what he can get done, he's still been able to get out decent pressure. I'm kind of curious to see what build he's running in this matchup. I mean, if I was a mage in this particular matchup against a Frost Death Knight, I would anticipate that they're going to be going after me. But it doesn't look like Wealthy Man's really going to be changing up his build all that much in this matchup. He didn't go for the Freezing Rain, which I think could have been a decent adaptation to get out that instant cast Blizzard and try to reset your Frozen Orb as much as possible. He's still opted into the Deep Shatter Talent as well, thinking he's going to get some Frostbolts off in this matchup, and he has managed to do so. Method Orange, when they are forced to retreat, you do get value out of that talent as you can spam out a lot of damage. Nice little attempt here onto Sea-Doo. He needs to be careful, tossing out his Astral Shift in order to survive that Chaos Bolt coming in from Chanimal. Wants to just really limit some of the damage output from Cloud9 at this point in the game. And as this game moves forward, I'm not sure. Do you think they're going to have the damage to take down Wealthy Man? They've limited him quite a bit, but the Frost Death Knight just doesn't seem to have the punch sort of required to actually secure a kill.
Well, I mean, we are entering Dampening right now, and I have to say, I feel like this game has felt faster, at least, than the last two games, just because Method Orange has had some pressure on Wealthy Man. We can see another spell for them offensively right here, getting Wealthy Man kind of low to about 20-30%, and if Dampening was at 20, let's say, %, that could have been the first ice block there, right? So they don't necessarily need to force ice blocks right now. They're kind of testing the waters, seeing what they can get done, because they'll presumably force both of those ice blocks in quick succession when Dampening. The healing reduction does stack up a little bit higher. Mez actually trading out the anti-magic zone here in exchange for just the Dark Soul of Chanimals, so potentially an Infernal opening in 1 minute for Chanimals to set up pressure. Wealthy Man again has managed to build some distance here. His Shimmers will be coming back off cooldown, so that means every single time Method Orange go behind the pillar, it becomes harder for them. You know, they use the Death Grip here. Wealthy Man probably has his Gateway back available. He has both his Blinks. So even if they do commit to this play, he's going to be able to kite away with no Death Grip. And it's just every single time they retreat, it becomes a harder task for Method Orange to stay on target. And that plays right into Cloud9's hands.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Bash over onto Cubsy. Big attempt here onto Mez and Shrill. They're trying to take down Wealthy Man. He has the Temporal Shield. Is he going to be able to get it off? Doesn't look like it just yet. Resummoning out his Water Elemental. Mez and Shrill cleaving down. I think Wealthy Man could position his pet a little bit better. You can basically micro it, move it away from just getting caught in all of this cleave damage. You can see him doing that right now, but you need to consistently see that because his pet's just getting mowed down by passive damage. Mez and Shrill are able to contribute to this fight, and if you had just moved it to the midfield, for example, you basically have a turret with your Water Elemental that you don't have to worry about dying. They're not targeting it down, it's just getting cleaved. So I think that's one thing Wealthy Man could min-max a little bit better.
Yeah, Chaos Bolt's coming in. Sea-Doo, there's a big swap here. Sea-Doo doesn't respect it with the Trinket, instead uses his Racial to remove the Maledicts there, the Fireblood coming in from Sea-Doo on that Dark Iron Dwarf Shaman for this game. Of course, all the players are playing on the tournament server, meaning that they can play any race combination in the game. Obviously, you're not allowed like a Gnome Shaman or something like that, but anything you can have on live, you can have on the game, barring some PvE items. We see the Infernals now flying in. Chanimals doing big damage, but Wealthy Man in the meantime also taking good damage. Unlike Jamili, he has opted for that Temporal Shield, so he has a good line of defense there to keep himself alive against these melee cleaves. And Cloud9, they're completely chilling in this situation.
Yeah, Icy Veins gets popped out by Wealthy Man. He's looking to get aggressive with an interrupt over on Sea-Doo. Trill portals out of line of sight, but this is an opportunity. Heartstop Aura fades. Delirium's going to fade as well, and Wealthy Man can start regenerating those Shimmers, and now he will have those available for the next time Method Orange push. And this has been basically every single time we see these two teams go head-to-head, Method Orange struggles to find a kill, and then later on in the game they get caught in this situation where kind of just everybody's dying. It's difficult for them to push back or push into the game, and Wealthy Man and Channel, let's keep them pinned down at the pillar. Finally, Method Orange, they're going to be moving forward. They're looking for an offensive push now onto Wealthy Man. What are they going to be able to get done? Paralysis onto Cubsy. Is there any follow-up? So far, there's not. Fear Spam coming in from Channel. Good backup onto Wealthy Man, but still, Wealthy Man's going to have a really difficult time getting away in this situation. And I can't help but feel like they're going to continue this pressure onto Trill with the full fear onto Sea-Doo. He's forced to run away once again. He actually decides to just march forward with the Fortifying Brew, looking for a play here on a Wealthy Man. Still good damage rolling. They need to be able to maintain uptime. Temporal Shield gets used. Are they going to be able to burst through it? Big damage. And they force out an Ice Block before the Temporal Shield. A small victory for Method Orange.
Yeah, Heartstop Aura may not have completely done its job here, but Wealthy Man does at least have his heart skip a beat in that situation. He had the Temporal Shield available, but still had to trade out the Ice Block whilst Cubsy was sitting down for a drink. And we're starting to see semblance of pressure here for Method Orange. Mez and Trill with uptime. Here comes the Touch of Death. Earth, Wind, and Fire from Trill. Big damage from both of the DPS, actually forcing Sheeps out onto Mez. And this is huge for Method Orange. They need to keep Mez high on health as Dampening starts to build up. The fact that they're forcing Cloud9 defensive already is excellent. The Infernal's not up for another minute. They need to really burst down the second Ice Block so that they can survive those Infernals and then try to win the game.
Yeah, full Polymorph secured over on a Sea-Doo. Anti-Magic Zone gets dropped out by Mez. That was beautiful. That's the kind of Anti-Magic Zone you really want to see. When Sea-Doo's in trouble, he can drop out that Anti-Magic Zone so Trill and Mez can continue the fight, continue the aggression on Wealthy Man, and you can see the Heartstop Aura really paying dividends here for Method Orange. Wealthy Man struggling to get away in this matchup. Trill all over him. Mez has to find a way to get on top, and like we've kind of talked about, Mez on the Frost Death Knight is going to be a lot less durable than the Unholy Death Knight, so Sea-Doo has to keep him alive. There's a Spirit Link Totem available, but Mez doesn't have too many tools left to work with. Cloud9 is almost at that 40% mark where the Death Knight just becomes such a vulnerability in the matchup.
Yeah, Cubsy's mana down to about 40%, but equally, the health pools of both Mez and Trill are that low. 35% dampening, healing reduction for both teams. Wealthy Man kites away, uses the Demonic Gateway. Actually, Trill tried to go for the outplay there. If he'd managed to land that Ring of Peace before the Gateway, then Wealthy Man would have surely had to use his second Ice Block. Narrowly avoided. This is the Infernal push from Cloud9. Mez so low on health. Spirit Link Totem comes out, but it does basically nothing. There's no health to distribute for Method Orange. They're in so much trouble in this situation. Chanimal, Wealthy Man, Cubsy, all 100% Cubsy sitting down for a drink, and this looks like the inevitable 40% number that Sid so much knows and loves.
Yeah, the Wizard Dominance coming in, Rain of Fire, Blizzard, Frozen Orb, all being channeled out, but Sea-Doo actually manages to recover with the Ascendance. Everyone's topped off. Method Orange have an opportunity. They can get aggressive. There's a lot of offensive cooldowns ready for Trill. What are they going to be able to do on Wealthy Man? He's caught into the stun. Ironbark gets traded out by Cubsy. Mez is going to be very vulnerable in this situation, and Sea-Doo's healing is so reduced because of the high level of dampening that I really feel like the best sort of defense in this situation is a solid offense. They have to make sure Wealthy Man is behind. They need to kill off the Water Elemental. They have to interrupt the Water Elemental, just slowly limit that damage Wealthy Man's able to put out. But Cubsy and Chanimal have had such good backup in this game that I feel like Method Orange, they've ran out of time.
Yeah, Venruki's Water Elemental. The worst nightmare would be separation from your Water Elemental as a Frost Mage here. Wealthy Man has big pressure on Method Orange, to be honest. Sea-Doo hasn't even been able to recover. Since the Spirit Link, his health has been dropping down just from various dots. The pet from Chanimals, 45% healing reduction. This is essentially a sharpened blade the entire rest of this game. Wealthy Man dropping low, doesn't have access to his second Ice Block, to his first Ice Block, so he uses out the second. No more Ice Blocks available. Cubsy, sure, he has some mana, but he also has 50% healing reduction to contend with here. The Urban Shield Totem was dropped out there for that offensive push. Now Sea-Doo without anything. Chanimal looking to carry any points of damage. They are essentially going to win them this game. There's no mana left for Method Orange. Cloud9, I mean, sure, Wealthy Man has no more cooldowns, but I'm pretty sure Chanimals could solo Method Orange at this point.
Yeah, we'll have to see what they can get done. Wealthy Man, he's playing it passive. He's just mounted up. He realizes Method Orange basically is in a situation where they cannot recover. He just needs to get distance. He needs to stay away. Bash on Trill. Good backup by Cubsy. 50% dampening. Sea-Doo's completely out of mana. They're trying to make a push on a Wealthy Man, but he's kiting away. He's done a good job. He's held on to his Shimmer. Frostbolt spam coming in. Can they take down Mez? Chanimal trying to set up his team. Lands a Fear over onto Sea-Doo. He trinkets out, but he's got no healing. Mez activates the Anti-Magic Shell. They're looking for that final push. Temporal Shield, as well as the Iron Bark used by Wealthy Man, but I think it's Mez that's going to fall. Spear onto Sea-Doo. Mez getting low, 53% dampening, and Method Orange, they got to go back to the drawing board. Cloud9 once again. Rosita Jones onto the roster. Normally we see Jamili on the Fire Mage, but now it's going to be Rosita Jones holding it down. Jamili going to be tagging in on that Elemental Shaman, and with the Holy Paladin, you have a combination of classes that can get big one-shots on basically anyone. Normally you could go after the healer, but you have massive burst potential with Hammer of Justice, with Lightning Lasso, with the Meteor. We'll have to see what they can get done. For the move, it's going to be more of a consistent race. They're going to be going after Rosita Jones early on, but they could honestly go after anyone in this matchup. I'm
curious to see if M2KC do some 3 versus 1 strategies, initiate crowd control on 3 players, and then burst 1 down. So far, their entire team is kind of just dead. I mean, WizK is shredding right now. RLPal is struggling. This is Avenging Crusader. You don't typically see the Paladin just barely floating above the water, about to drown while Avenging Crusader. Is this Divine Shield? Is this just the end of the game? Peekaboo owning RLPal. That's Divine Shield. Mass Dispel instantly silenced after. RLPal is starting to falter. He's fully stunned. There's nothing. Smoke bomb's over. The move just, well, okay, RLPal's holding on. There's still a kick. He can't get through the kick. Peekaboo nails it. And, well then.
Whoa, that's the move, baby, I believe is the quote.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll have to see what they can get done. For the move, it's going to be about denying those big one-shot setups, because the composition M2KC is bringing, it's not a composition that has particularly great consistent damage. It's going to be about those combustion one-shots with the Lightning Lasso, and if they can find openings, they can definitely land a kill in this matchup. But I feel like the move, with the way they're playing today, is going to be able to deny a lot of those opportunities, but we'll have to see exactly how it plays out. RLPal, I think, is going to be second-guessing an offensive push after what happened in game number 1, but I don't think he can afford to do that. Their composition, they have to be willing to play aggressive. We really need to see RLPal pushing in, getting those Hammer of Justices, getting that damage out. And it's actually Peekaboo who's going to be under fire early on. Rosita Jones securing some crowd control, but he actually gets kidney shot up. That was a good attempt there by M2KC, but the move managed to survive.
This composition is built to exploit melee DPS such as the Assassination Rogue, but Peekaboo is not a rogue that you are going to easily exploit. RLPal sitting through an extended crowd control chain. Rosita Jones in trouble. Ice block already very early on, forced by the move, and mass dispelled off by WizK. The move are on point today. I mean, I almost feel like if it's ever a Shadow Priest Rogue Shaman meta, they're winning BlizzCon. There's absolutely nobody that can stop them. But if it's not, then that's where we start to see them fall apart. I mean, it's actually crazy how quickly they're dismantling M2KC. M2KC looking to counterattack now. Jamili getting a greater Pyroblast. Big Earth Shock. Or sorry, Rosita Jones getting the greater Pyroblast. A bit confusing when there's formerly 2 mages on the same roster. Peekaboo at low health, but he doesn't care. He's going for the kill. RLPal is silenced. Temporal Shield needs to be enough. Avenging Crusader gets activated. But we even saw in the past that this may not be enough. A bit surprising that Peekaboo doesn't evasion the Avenging Crusader to try and remove its healing effects and avoid some of its damage at least. But the move are going to have to wait for Avenging Crusader. They don't have nearly the same amount of pressure as they did in the last situation. But in the meantime, M2KC are counter-engaging. Big Meteor, Lightning Lasso. That's going to be a Cloak of Shadows. Absurge is still crowd controlled, and M2KC finally showing the strengths of their composition.
Yeah, Peekaboo with a full KD shot. Smoke bomb onto Rosita Jones. Peekaboo needs to get topped off. Absurge has a bit of work cut out for him right now. It is going to be a Quaking Palm on RLPal to continue the crowd control chain with a full Hex onto Jamili. Nice double fear coming in from WizK, and an interrupt on Rosita Jones denies the decurse onto Jamili, so that full Hex will sit from Absurge. Now a kidney shot on RLPal, as it looks like Peekaboo is going to be turning his attention onto the Holy Paladin. Shadow stepping back to Rosita Jones. Peekaboo all over the map at this point. He basically has 2 main pressure points, both RLPal and Rosita Jones, and RLPal is struggling to heal up. He's got no Avenging Crusader. He's caught into a silence. Rosita Jones is rotting down. This could be Divine Shield. The move has a lot of pressure.
I have not seen this amount of damage before in an arena match in some time. The move are just absolutely melting the Mew Mew Kitty Cat's faces off at this point. And now they're really limited on defensive cooldowns. A full blind, he's playing Relentless. He can't get out of that unless he Divine Shields, and that'll be the last line. Rosita's trying to hold out with a Temporal Shield. Peekaboo connects. That Gladiator's Maledict absorbs the Temporal Shield. Peekaboo stuns him behind the pillar. Absurge purges down the Blazing Barrier. Cauterized going to trigger. Rosita whiffs the Dragon's Breath on Peekaboo and ends up getting clutched out by WizK. 2-0 lead for the move.
Absolutely. Move just firing on all cylinders. This is what their team looks like when they're playing their best. and they're all over the place, multiple targets, multiple pressure points. M2KC is constantly guessing who they're going after, and they're just setting up these beautiful kill opportunities. I think this composition for M2KC is going to be a lot better, but we'll have to see what they can get done.
All right, let's see what they can get done. The move, they're going after RubCub immediately. Jamili, though, hexes Peekaboo and saves RubCub quite easily. Roasties peels back. Looks like he wants to go after Peekaboo. Potentially just dotting up multiple targets, trying to exploit the weakness of making the Shaman have to cast heals if there's pressure onto multiple players, and then open up to a wind shear. Jamili is trying to protect RubCub. Usage of that Lightning Lasso, stalling some damage. Big Stormkeeper Lightning Bolts. RubCub moves in. Jumps in for a Bash Cyclone, no denial on that. Peekaboo then moves over to counter-aggress. The move still just trying to go after RubCub on that Druid, perhaps test his capabilities on that healer as they know it's going to be an alternate. RubCub Shadow Melts the Gladiator's Maledicts. He's able to avoid a lot of healing absorptions, but they got his Gladiator Safeguard regardless. One Swiftmend out of the way. RubCub trying to line of sight, gets interrupted on the heal. Peekaboo has just been slaying healers all day today, so potentially the move clean it up here. Finally some pressure though onto WizK with that Lightning Lasso. That gets his Gladiator Safeguard shield procced as well. Cooldowns traded on both sides. RubCub getting interrupted again by Peekaboo. Jamili setting up to potentially move towards RubCub and save him. Roasties is peeled back. We see Stormkeeper from Jamili potentially here in 1 second, as they may look for big burst. Hex, Windshear on Upsurge into a full Hex. It's perfect timing. He can't use Grounding Totem. Now they kidney shot WizK at the exact same moment, and they get a Dispersion. That was a clean setup by M2KC. Peekaboo went on a solo mission while his Shadow Priest was in trouble and didn't get anything, so M2KC keep themselves in the game.
Yeah, M2KC really striking back. I would say they have most of the pressure in this matchup. RubCub with no Trinket is vulnerable, but I think if Jamili and Roasty can keep up the pressure they're putting out on WizK, it's going to be difficult for him to really push in and take RubCub down. RubCub is constantly repositioning himself across the map as far away as possible, but a big attempt here over onto Roasty. What are they going to be able to get done? Kidney shot into Capacitor Totem. Roasty trinkets out into a Cloak of Shadows. Gladiator Safeguard procs as well, and now Roasty's going to be vulnerable. That was the smoke bomb from Peekaboo, so RubCub should be able to back Roasties up if they do decide to make an attempt on him once again.
All right, let's see if M2KC can protect Roasties for the next attack. Peekaboo vulnerable, WizK vulnerable with no Gladiator's medallions. Jamili actually just taking some damage from WizK just through the pillar from those damage over time effects. RubCub's mana already not in the best position. Silence on RubCub. WizK moves in to try and fear. Jamili pre-tremors. Roasty's still down at about half health. RubCub gets interrupted by Peekaboo. Peekaboo looking to close this game out on Roasties. Roasty's still very low on health. Gladiator's Maledict dispelled by RubCub, but now he's in a Vampiric Touch for a 5. Roasty still has multiple Gladiator's Maledicts. With the evasion up, Peekaboo can't kill him, so Peekaboo is going to crowd control RubCub instead, let WizK develop momentum, then vanish Cheap Shot Roasty to prevent evasion's effectiveness. WizK moves in on the kidney shot. If WizK, he disperses for mobility to get on top of RubCub to close the game out. A very risky move, but it could just win the game.
Oh!
They silence the trinket on the line, and they're going to take it. Aggressive moves from the move in game 3.
You love to see it. The move with the
standard from Method Orange. Never Lucky still running their Rogue Mage Paladin, and this is a matchup that Jamili's team with the same comp was not able to overcome, so I am curious if Never Lucky can beat the Demon Hunter Death Knight with that same composition and how they decide to play it. Are they going to do Druid swaps? Seadu's running Renewal, so he definitely is considering that as an option.
I think he expects to be trained down to this particular matchup, if I'm being honest with you. This is what normally happens, and I think that's why in the past, Seadu has opted to play the Restoration Shaman. He wasn't the most confident being trained down on Restoration Druid, but we saw last week all the hard work and practice Seadu's been putting into that Restoration Druid really was paying off. It seemed like he was on point defensively and offensively, and I feel like right now, he's more than prepared for an offensive push from Never Lucky. Although the last game, these two teams met up against each other, Seadu was taken down quite quickly in the big swap, but Seadu knows he's the main target, and he's just sitting in stealth. He's allowing Mez and Trill to move in. They can heal themselves. They're developing a lead, and Seadu can just stall out the game as long as he possibly can. He's going to be waiting till the last moment to come out and start healing up Trill so he doesn't fall further behind. But Never Lucky, their main game plan, go after Seadu, and Seadu knows that.
All right, they're going to be engaging the attack. I'm wondering if Seadu is playing Feral Affinity or Guardian Affinity. We're going to double check here after this initial play from Never Lucky. Any Magic Zone is high value here from Mez, that purple barrier. hit Combustion and Vendetta, although it doesn't even look like it really mattered. They get the Gladiator safeguard. They continue the pursuit with the Avenging Crusader and Vendetta still rolling. Sea-Doo dashing away, but Colo has Sprint, Blessing of Freedom. They're going all in for the kill. Sea-Doo barkskins, but he's not in bear form for the stun. Trill is trying to counter pressure, but there's no damage. Hammer of Justice, triple stun lockdown into the Garrote silence. Sea-Doo hovering around 20%. He must be running that Frenzied Regeneration, the Guardian Affinity, and anticipating himself as the target. He survives the first wave of Never Lucky and will be highly durable for the next attack, assuming that he gets into bear form for the stun. And I think that this strategy is going to be a little bit too predictable at this point now.
Well, this is the game. Sea-Doo has to keep himself alive before Zach goes out of mana. Once Zach goes out of mana, then Method Orange start developing a massive lead. You can see good pressure coming in from Mez and Trill at this point. Zach trying to get away from these mana rifts, but Trill has been able to consistently land them. Majordan backing him up now with a nice polymorph, and that's going to be the name of the game. Colo sits on Sea-Doo. Majordan has to control Mez and Trill, buying his team enough time to take Sea-Doo down, but Sea-Doo, he has his Trinket, he has Barkskin, they still have Darkness left to work with. Method Orange has a lot of opportunities to survive here.
Big swap onto Trill with the Smoke Bomb, trying to make a play here and take down the Demon Hunter. Sea-Doo's in a poly, Trill wants to dispel it. Actually, not even really good. It does out to go for the dispel a little bit late. May not have really even been needed in that position. Mez is polyed. Sea-Doo's out in midfield. I'm wondering if he's trying to stop Zach from drinking with the Ursul's Vortex, but he does not want to be in midfield for too long as he is the target. He's going to stun Colo, then get back to the pillar, immediately duck for cover. He knows that he's the most likely to die against this composition. The Demon Hunter and the Death Knight are just so self-sustaining with the Soul Rending and Leech Healing on the Demon Hunter and the Death Strikes of the Death Knight. So as long as Sea-Doo is at the pillar, he's in bear form, rotates through his defensive cooldowns effectively, I think he'll make it out alive. And so far, it's been so good.
Yeah, so far so good. Sea-Doo manages to hold on. Barkskin gets traded out. He still has the renewal, so that big defensive talent if he needs it. And I have to say, Method Orange, they're looking good. Zach's on 50% mana. They haven't really been able to get too much rolling so far. Method Orange always has an answer. There's not too many scary moments in the game so far. Full kitty shot on Sea-Doo. He's in bear form. Anti-Magic Zone trades out, and it's a perfect trade. Majordan with the Combustion, Mez with the Anti-Magic Zone, and I want to see if Majordan is running the talent to reduce the cooldown of his Combustion, that Firestarter build. We'll have to see once this Fireball goes off. He is. So that's what he needs to do. He needs to find Fireballs so he can desync Combustion with the Anti-Magic Zone, and that's their opportunity to really push forward and try to take down Sea-Doo with those offensive cooldowns.
So they've split their cooldowns on this push. They led with Vendetta, they got Barkskin. Then they went with Combust, they got Anti-Magic Zone. Now they're going with Avenging Crusader. They're hoping to get a kill or get a Darkness. Let's see how Method Orange respond. Still a lot of damage they may need to respect. Sea-Doo so far isn't making any trades, and he's holding out. If he doesn't make any trades, it puts him so far ahead. At this point, by the time the next Vendetta and Combustion roll around, I think Zach is going to be at 0 mana, assuming that Trill keeps nailing these mana rifts. Trill is blinded. This is to try and potentially bait a Trinket for a Smoke Bomb kill on him later, but he opts not to Trinket, so he's not going to leave that as an option on the table. Method Orange playing this very conservatively, and I would say correctly. So far, they haven't really made any significant errors, and I do assume that if they continue to make no mistakes, that they should be able to take game one.
Despite the mana rifts coming in from Trill, Sea-Doo is actually even on mana with Zach. He might actually be a little bit behind, so struggling to keep himself alive at this point. His mana could eventually just run out. The Kleptomania talent is so strong from Mage. Basically empowers your spell steal, removing all of those heal over time effects the Restoration Druid has at their disposal in one global cooldown. So very effective. It also taxes the Druid's mana quite heavily. Colo looking for an offensive push. Cheap shot on Trill, cheap shot on Mez, kidney shot onto Trill. Bit of a peculiar setup here for Never Lucky, but they bought Zach enough time to sit down and get a drink. So they traded out Vanish, they traded out Stun DRs, and Zach got full mana, and that's not necessarily the worst trade. Sea-Doo now way behind on mana, and Never Lucky, they could just secure the late game advantage.
Oh, that drink just put Never Lucky back into the fight here. Double Ring of Frost right during the stun. Perfect timing. It's 3-on-1. Sea-Doo did pre-Iron Park and get into bear form. That's reducing a lot of the damage. So even though his team was crowd controlled, he does survive that attack. Now they need to deal with the Avenging Crusader that's available in about 2 more seconds. And Zach's going to have many of those thanks to that drink, which means just more damage tossed at Sea-Doo. More mana that he really can't afford to spend. He's actually so far behind, and Never Lucky could just win with overwhelming pressure, which we've seen them time and time again. You usually expect Rogue Mage to win with the setup and the burst, which they're doing a decent job of as well. Polymorph on Trill, stun on Sea-Doo, that's to delay darkness. Now it's used very late. They're going to use the Gladiator's Maledicts to try and counter pressure Majidin while Sea-Doo chills in the darkness. Majidin's going to respect that, use the Ice Block so he can stabilize, then polymorph the DPS members, being Mez and Trill, try and stall for the next kidney shot on Sea-Doo. Sea-Doo still rotating well through his cooldowns. Actually, Majidin is a vulnerable target. Colo is increasingly vulnerable. The next triple stun could actually kill Never Lucky, even if they don't run out of mana. They've got Smoke Bomb, but I don't think there's any opportunities on any other targets at the moment. They catch Sea-Doo. He pre-Iron Barks, but I don't think the Iron Bark is really that valuable. Maybe a bit of an error to use the Hammer of Justice first as well. Trill can reverse magic that as he does, and Mage is going to die. They definitely overextended there, overstayed their welcome. Sea-Doo's Druid looks solid in game number 1, so Sea-Doo, it's already happened to him once, so if it happens again, it's kind of just unfortunate, but I don't think it's going to happen again.
Well, we've been pretty impressed by Never Lucky as well throughout these cups. You know, Zach has been playing DPS and healer. Colo's been playing DPS and healer. These guys have been incredibly flexible. Method Orange respecting that flexibility and the DK Windwalker potential. Fancy their chances once again into the RM Paladin here of Never Lucky.
Yep, let's see what Never Lucky can get done. Method Orange, I think this is a composition they're not particularly favored against, but like I said, Windwalker, Frost Mage, Restoration Druid, it has a fair shot against everything. It's got a lot of control, a lot of burst damage because of that Windwalker Monk and all that control coming in from the Frost Mage, Restoration Druid. We'll have to see what Colo can get done. I think he's just looking for Sea-Doo, and he might end up finding him running right on top. I'm really surprised. Sea-Doo saw Colo.
Saw him, yeah.
Sea-Doo saw Colo. Colo didn't see Sea-Doo, and Sea-Doo had a bit of a panic moment getting into bear form. You do not want to get sapped as a Restoration Druid against this composition. Is an easy all-in for Never Lucky in that case. So good response. Hammer of Justice on Sea-Doo into a Ring of Frost, but Trill shuts it down. Double leg sweep coming in. Samayam nails a sheep on Zach. Majidin having to play a little bit defensive. He's on the run. Samayam pulls out the Icy Veins, looking to get really aggressive, but there's just not that much follow-up.
Not that much follow-up indeed. However, I expect to swap pretty soon onto Sea-Doo in this situation with no Gladiator's Medallion. He's not running the Renewal, so opting for the Wild Charge so he can get drinks later in the fight. Good pressure on Majidin right now. A startling amount of damage that Zach is being a little bit unresponsive to, just relying on Light of the Martyr. That's not a very big and powerful heal, and Trill is a very big and powerful Windwalker. A bit disrespectful by Never Lucky early on, but they get away with it.
Yep, get away with the greed. Samayam moves in, interrupt on Majidin. Beautiful play. They end up getting the Ice Block anyways. That was perfectly done by Samayam. Interrupting Majidin on Polymorph. All of a sudden, there's no threat of counterspell. He gets a free sheep on Zach. Zach can't do anything about it. I guess he could have thrown out the ultimate sacrifice if he really wanted to, but they end up getting the Ice Block. Beautiful plays from Method Orange, and this is actually not looking too bad. I mean, Majidin on the Fire Mage, he only has one Ice Block for another 4 minutes, so it's going to be scary. Trill and Samayam, if they can get another setup, it could be the Divine Shield. If they get one more, it could be the game.
All right, let's see if they can pull it off here. Method Orange showing a lot of confidence in these Druid compositions here against Never Lucky, but Sea-Doo gets interrupted. He can't use Bark Skin when he's counterspelled during a stun. They're going for the all-in to kill him. Is he going to make it out alive? He needs some help. He needs it now. Big damage. Colo all-ins with the Cloak of Shadows to immune. Crowd control. Zach all-ins with the Divine Shield as well, but they didn't get the kill. Sea-Doo stays alive, and Never Lucky blow out all of their defense to stay aggressive to barely scratch Sea-Doo. This is devastating for Never Lucky. They're trying to pull an Ice Block here from Samayam with the Smoke Bomb. Perhaps they can get it, but not even enough damage to get an Ice Block. Samayam holds on, although Sea-Doo likely wants to save his Iron Bark as long as possible just in case he gets swapped to. Touch of Death available. Trill can make a play here. I'm very curious when Trill's going to pull the trigger on that. Sea-Doo's moving in. Method Orange have confidence. They're looking for an aggressive push. They've got Majidin pinned in a Vortex. Sea-Doo's going to sit through that Hammer of Justice. Samayam tries to get a Polymorph, but now counterspell's out of the way. Sea-Doo goes for Bash. Cyclone. Touch of Death was activated, although it didn't do too much. It was actually Blessing of Protection instantly off. Sea-Doo's trying to sit through blind. He doesn't want to be a swap target later on. They need to get a sap out of this. Doesn't look like they're in position to get it. Polymorph gets stopped. Blind goes effectively wasted at that point for Never Lucky. things are falling apart for them. Method Orange look good to take game 2 and advance to match point.
Well, they're going after Sam. He still has both of his ice blocks. Majidin does not have that luxury for another 3 minutes. Zach has had really good positioning so far. He realizes one polymorph on him, that's the game. So he needs to be very careful in a good position to stay away from Sam at all costs. And I think it's going to be up to C2 and Trill to try to help Sam set up for some crowd control. Otherwise, Majidin could just easily survive. Temporal Shield gets used. He gets topped off because of that. Sam moving forward. There's a polymorph on Colo. He's been left with C2. C2's going to be able to get a Cyclone. Now it's up to Sam. Can he get the polymorph? Zach does a good job avoiding it. Majidin finds a Ring of Frost as well. Fortunately, Majidin gets denied on his Ring of Frost. Colo actually goes just for the sap. And this could be potentially the first ice block from Sam, but Sam with good positioning avoids a lot of the incoming damage that Never Lucky had available.
All right, good avoidance so far. Mana really the only problem right now for Method Orange.
Nice.
Majidin getting bursted though, they could just outright kill him. Zach stabilizes with the ultimate sacrifice. Majidin's immune to damage, and the damage that he takes is redirected to Zach. Zach has Avenging Wrath that increases his healing, so likely his team will recover here, but at the expense of quite a bit of mana. Trill getting stunned up by Colo. Curious how Colo is trying to set up with that Vanish. Now a Hammer of Justice onto Sea-Doo. Looks like Trill's going to be the target. They're trying to catch him off guard. A D-Yard stun, but maybe a D-Yard stun's all they need to
Blessing of
close it out.
Protection!
They bop off the Karma. Sea-Doo panic trinkets out of the Polymorph with Iron Bark. A huge panic attack for Method Orange. Suddenly they are very far behind on cooldowns and Never Lucky keep themselves alive in game 2.
Well, now there's just a massive vulnerability, and his name's Trill. Majidin, he has Combustion. The next Kidney Shot, Trill has nothing. He's got no Trinket. Sea-Doo has no Trinket. If they get one clean setup onto Trill, it's just going to be the game. Trill's going to have to do a phenomenal job running away, but he's got no Transcendence. Full crowd control onto Sea-Doo. Trill, what are you going to do? He's out of line of sight. Colo all over him. Majidin as well. There's a full blind on Sea-Doo. He's got no Trinket. Trill's going to have to pull off miracles to survive the situation.
All right, sitting through a blind at the moment. He has to. Now in a sap, but Trill in a 1 versus 3 is avoiding Never Lucky at all costs. Zach wraps around the corner. Colo shadow steps in to try and kill, but then Trill portals away out of line of sight, avoiding that situation that would have otherwise been certain death. Now charging forward to close the game out with Touch of Death available. Majidin blinks back with a Greater Pyro, doesn't get it though, unfortunately. Now Touch of Death is active, they're racing the Temporal Shield. Majidin's gonna have to Ice Block on top of it. Nice force by Method Orange, but look at the mana. Again, I was pointing it out earlier, Sea-Doo doesn't have a lot of it. When he runs out, he's not gonna be able to heal anymore. Majidin though, he could just die before that point even happens. Huge damage. Zach needs 17 more seconds to his Avenging Wrath. His mana is not looking too awesome, but at least a little bit more awesome than Sea-Doo's in this position. Trill out of Polymorphs in a second, looking to close the game as soon as he connects. Colo's gonna go after Trill, but there's Gladiator's Maledicts. It's absorbing all of the heals onto Majidin. He gets the ultimate sacrifice right before getting cloned. Clutch timing by Zach. They drop Smoke Bomb. I'm not sure what was the goal with that Smoke Bomb.
It was actually not a bad Smoke Bomb. It denied the Cyclone incoming from Sea-Doo onto Majidin. If he had got that Cyclone off, Majidin would have just let the Divine Sacrifice fade from him, and then he wouldn't have got any heals during that time from Zach. So I don't think it was a bad Smoke Bomb whatsoever. I think Colo might have saved the day there on Majidin, but still Majidin in some trouble. Temporal Shield does bounce his hit points up. Sea-Doo gets interrupted. Trill into a Kidney Shot, but it gets overlapped with Polymorph, so a bit of mismanagement there by Never Lucky, and Sam really just taking control of the situation. Majidin in a Polymorph, Colo in a Frost Nova, and now it's all the opportunity for Method Orange to really get aggressive. We're at 15% dampening. The only thing Never Lucky has going in their favor is they have a lot of their defensives rotating back up, and Zach has a bit of a mana lead right now.
All right, can they keep the lead going here into deep dampening? Trill to target again. What's he going to do to stay alive? Touch of Karma. Is there a Blessing of Protection to remove it? They're just actually killing him through it. Iron Bark gets activated. Is that even going to be enough? Trill is taking so much damage from Never Lucky right now. A huge push at this moment in time. Majidin barely recovers with that Temporal Shield. Now trying to reposition to get crowd control on Sea-Doo, but he's being pressured away. Ring of Peace knocks him to the side. Zach's not an LOS. Huge damage, no cooldowns, and that's gonna be it. No, Cauterize actually still available. Majidin on the run as that triggers and enhances his speed, but he is taking a pretty big damage over time effect. Somehow Zach has actually stabilized him through that push. keeping his team in the fight, just trying to burn down the last remainder of Sidu's mana, but there's a touch of death. Zach's in unfortunately, it's actually a fully diminishing returned polymorph. Mageddon goes for the Ring of Frost with 1 second left, gets it. It's still 3 versus 1 on Trill. Potentially Neverlucky can take it. Trill portals out of the meteor, but Zach is right there. Sidu's with Trill as well. Will Sidu be able to heal through the damage? Kolo with Blessing of Freedom looks to connect and close this out with pure damage. Iron Bark available. It's likely needed at this point. If Sidu gets crowd control, Trill could die. At this moment in time, Mageddon gets sacrificed. He's going to be fine. Sidu's in a stun. They didn't Iron Bark. Trill has to run, wrapping around the corner. Kolo trying to catch up to him, gets a re-stealth. Now he can also cheap shot to set up Mageddon for crowd control, but gets Frost Nova'd out of stealth. Samayam anticipating Kolo's movements. Kolo actually Cloak of Shadows aggressively, realizing that Mageddon is done for. Kolo has to make something happen. He's going to try to, but I don't think they've got enough crowd control. Sidu's sitting through a kick comfortably. Trill now has Touch of Karma again. Zach's got Avenging Wrath for a few moments, but after that, there's nothing.
Yeah, Trill could be in a little bit of trouble, though. They do, I guess they don't have the Blessing of Protection, so he has a safe Karma at this point. Mageddon, really nothing left. No Cauterize, no Ice Block. They have some offensive cooldowns. They're trying to go for it, but Sidu preemptively Iron Bark to deny. And now it's Zach that's in a full polymorph. If Trill can get there, if he can land the damage, Mageddon's going to be in so much trouble. Samayam trying to just solo him. Trill in polymorphs. There's been no backup, and now the crowd control has faded, and Zach should be able to keep Mageddon alive. Now it is the time for Neverlucky to sort of reverse the pressure onto Trill, but I just don't know if Zach can sustain. He's completely out of mana. There's no defensive cooldowns. Mageddon has his Ice Block coming up in just 5 short seconds. I think he might have enough time. Trill pushes forward with the Touch of Karma. 1 second left. Ice Block, and now it's Trill. Trill's going to be in a lot of trouble. An interrupt on Sidu. Trill's not going to have too much healing. Can Kolo and Mageddon reverse this game? Is Trill going to be forced defensive? If they can pull it off, it would be a miracle, but I think it's Mageddon that's going to fall. Big burst damage coming in from Trill. Fist of Fury, Whirling Dragon Punch. Method Orange up in this.
Deploy them here. I think they were trying some interesting, innovative strategies against Cloud9, potentially trying to counter them on paper, but Cloud9 were more than ready and prepared. So Method Orange battled to try and have a second chance later on in the tournament. They still need to get through Neverlucky. Neverlucky have an opportunity to reverse sweep, and they're fully capable of it. We have seen in the past that they can absolutely erase players or drag fights on for such a long period of time that they overwhelm the enemy team. So far, Neverlucky engaged crowd control on 3 players. Samayam is going to use his Gladiator's Medallion to disrupt that crowd control chain. Sidu also commits his Gladiator's Medallion to remove blind. Iron Bark to stop the initial assault. Neverlucky are playing a much more standard strategy this time around, going after the Mage Samayam. Method Orange are also targeting the Mage and the opposing team Mageddon. Zach in a Cyclone. Mageddon very low on health and already into an Ice Block. This is a confident push from Method Orange, and looking like they are possibly going to 3-0 clean sweep Neverlucky.
Really good attempt there by Method Orange, getting the Ice Block from Mageddon almost instantaneously. Big setup now onto Samayam. Smoke Bomb gets dropped. Kleptomania spell sale from Mageddon as well. Samayam with the counter Kleptomania gets all of those heal over time effects back. And now he should be completely fine because of that. Icy Veins gets traded out. Samayam looking to get really aggressive right now. Can he land the polymorph onto Zach? That is going to be the question. Doesn't look like it. Zach's had really good positioning in this match so far. Samayam really hasn't found polymorphs on him outside of Sidu and Trill helping set up that crowd control. Trill with a beautiful paralysis on Zach into a full cyclone. Wow, that was nicely done by Method Orange. Zach was looking to get aggressive, but with the help of Trill, they were able to reverse the pressure and momentum on Mageddon. Mageddon gets the ultimate sacrifice at 5% health. Nicely done there by Zach, but honestly, Method Orange is on fire.
Method Orange are on a spree right now, although Sidu gets caught in a polymorph, a bit of a blunder and an opportunity for Neverlucky to get an Ice Block. They need a bit more damage. Trill slowing it down though by stunning Mageddon and actually counter pressuring. Big damage from Trill right now. Zach struggling. If he gets interrupted by Samayam, it's going to be game over. Zach has to fake cast the counter spell. He's not getting through it though, and Mageddon keeps dipping lower. Now he's in a bash. Kolo can't assist. They switch it into a poly. He uses the Divine Shield. Mageddon though is just getting blasted by damage. Zach is struggling to heal, even immune to crowd control. Mageddon cycloned at low health by Sidu. Now looking to maybe switch that over to Zach. Samayam being counter pressured. Neverlucky need to get an Ice Block here. If they don't, they're so far behind. Sidu's in a full polymorph. How on earth do they not get an Ice Block here? Samayam is recovering. It looks like he's okay. He's holding out while Sidu sits in the polymorphs. Trinkets out of blind. Fair exchange for Method Orange, and they continue to establish their lead.
Yep, nicely done. Mageddon has a lot of damage at his disposal. There's an all-in opportunity onto Sidu. Are they going to be able to get it rolling? If they can get a kidney shot into a Hammer of Justice, Sidu could just be the end of days for him. But it's a fully polymorph onto Zac, and it's Majordan that's in trouble. Zac has no defensive cooldowns left besides the Blessing of Protection, but he's in a full Cyclone. What can they do? Majordan on the run. Cauterize gets absorbed by Maledict. He's trying to survive. Zac doing everything he can to keep him alive. Good kiting there by Majordan. Does end up surviving, but the combustion, he tried to counter pressure.
He jumped down off the side, actually line of sighted Zac for a second. I almost thought that was going to lose him the game. Blessing of Protection still available. Sacrifice is rotating back up. Avenging Wrath is rotating back up. If Zac can stay alive a bit longer, I mean, Sidhu's mana is not good. He's already below half. Zac has a huge lead there. Kolo sitting through and entangling roots out in the side corner of Dalaran Sewers for quite a long period of time. Zac wasn't able to get him out. Now he's Cyclone. Majordan's in trouble. This could just be game over if they keep chaining them together. They get the second and they take the game. Method Orange's Mage Druid synergy is on point today. I love that they're utilizing Sam I Am and Trill.